This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Yes, Dumela, hello and welcome to this wonderful part of the world. We are sitting here and enjoying the hustle and bustle of these beautiful butterflies, doing a very important role and job for us this afternoon. And this will be the start of our afternoons, looking at insects. Wonderful activity, sure. All right, good afternoon. Welcome to Tswalu Kalahari. My name is Kyle, and behind camera is Owen. Thanks so much for joining us on this wonderful and breathtaking afternoon. We're just enjoying this lovely little scene playing out in front of us. Obviously, very important what is happening here right now. Obviously, those flowers doing a very important job, but so are the insects. And that's going to be our main drive this afternoon. We're going to try and find a loose colony of leaf cutter bees. Pretty remarkable little insects, and what we want to do is head up on this road. So welcome aboard on your very own live safari, and we're going to take you through a wonderful journey this afternoon. To communicate with us, for all our young ambassadors, that'll be kids questions at WildEarth.tv. Anything you want to know, we can help you out. For everybody else, it's just hashtag WildEarth or at FC. And don't forget to check out that amazing new initiative, and throughout this wonderful drive that we're going to obviously be unearthing some very incredible things for you folks this afternoon. In the mix of things, don't forget to check out wildearth.tv/explorer for that new initiative that has just taken off. So we're heading out west. It's quite toasty today, about 29 degrees Celsius. So we can really feel that African sun pushing down on the land. That is about 84 degrees Fahrenheit. And the days are starting to get warmer. The warmest part in South Africa is actually in January. That is the hottest part of the year. People always come to South Africa because they want the heat. Unfortunately, the heat is all the way in January. And it is very true to this side of the world as well. So these little butterflies hard at work, ensuring that what needs to be done is done. And this is only a few species. There's only one or two species within this bush, but we're going to be looking at a few more species in the upcoming days. Obviously, they're hard at work now, obviously eating and munching away as young caterpillars, and then they'll develop into beautiful, mobile flying insects, just like you're seeing right now. And a wonderful variety we have on Tswalu. Over 76 different recorded butterflies just on Tswalu. That is tremendous diversity, especially for an arid region or area where we are at the moment. Nice breeze coming from the south there, just keeping things nice and cool. Obviously in the mix of those still periods where you can really feel that African sun. And then we've got sweet smells all around us because there's a lot of flowering plants right now. So just sitting here, your nose is tickled and tantalized with all this sweet fragrance around us. And that obviously very, very attractive and irresistible to insects, and especially these lovely things. So like I said, we're going to be looking for leafcutter bees, very, very special little insects. And obviously in the mix of things, we're going to look for anything and everything. That's the way I like to guide, is that anything that's available, anything that Mother Nature wants to show us, that's what we would utilize. For now, I'm going to send you off to one of my colleagues for their introduction, and we'll see you back this side.
Good afternoon, everyone, from Djuma Game Reserve. It's quite hot and humid this afternoon. It's about 35 degrees Celsius, 95 degrees Fahrenheit, with a strong threat of rain. You'll probably hear some thunder in the background. Thunder in the background and these cute little lamb faces. So many lambs out here in quarantine. It's just gorgeous. Very nice. Hi everyone, it's me, Trishala, and I've got Gert on camera with me this afternoon on Djuma Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands. Like I said, we've got lots of plans. See, this kind of weather, though uncomfortable, and it's kind of very, makes you all sticky, and then of course there might be rain and stuff like that. It's really good weather for predators. So I'm hoping to check out the hyena den, see if they're active. Whenever it's overcast, I think about wild dogs, and I also want to go up to Buffelshoek. So those are the plans for today, and of course stopping for all the little things in between, like these little ones. They're being quite curious because they're very interested in this termite mound. You can't see exactly where they're putting their mounts, but around termite mounds, the soil is very nutrient rich. So the grass that grows there is particularly tasty. So you might find that around termite mounds it looks a little bit bare, and that's because animals go and eat there first. So they may be licking up termites, which is not actually unusual. Lots of animals would engage in taking little termites, especially at this time of year. And you'll occasionally see herbivores doing that too. I think little lambs are also inquisitive, so they want to try all these things out. But we might also just be missing that they're clipping some grass because we can't see properly. Very, very cute. They might also be licking the sand and trying to get extra minerals that way. Being so young, they've got to kind of try all these things out, the things that they see other members in the herd doing. And they've got to try it out themselves. Oh, look at that. Look at that tongue. Zeph, you'd like to know if impala lambs are the happy meals of the bush. Zeph, I think that they wouldn't like that insinuation at all. But essentially, yes, they are. They're that's ridiculously small McDonald's burger with the small, tiny chips. But the reason that that's quoted is, one, because impalas are the most popular meal. They're a good-sized antelope. And they really are fast food. Apart from being fast themselves, the little ones get snapped up very quickly. And they also have an appropriate M on their behind in black. Can you see that? Look at that little puddle seated there in the middle. That is so cute. Jerome, you'd like to know if impala ever feed on insects? They can. As I said before, herbivores will and can eat insects particularly. And that's generally when they are deficient in something in their diet. So they don't go and seek it out. Generally, they'll only consume insects if they're lacking something in their diet, or in the case of these lambs, I think that if they were eating termites, because remember we didn't actually see that directly, if they were eating termites, I think that's more out of curiosity than out of having some sort of deficiency. Herbivores will often chew on bones, osteophagy, to access other minerals that they can't otherwise in their diet. If they're lacking something, they'll do the same with soil, geophagy, for the same reason. Very, very cute. Everyone looks very relaxed. So that's telling me that I'm unlikely to find a predator in the immediate vicinity. But I'm going to go down to the hyena den and see if I can find one there.
Well, while Tswalu looks for the hyena den, we have found a kudu that is making its alarm call. Can you hear it? I'm going to keep quiet, see if you can maybe pick it up. It's gone quiet now, but I'm pretty sure I'm calling it a leopard, which would be Tingana. It's not far from where I left him this morning. So where it's looking will probably help us in terms of trying to find it. But before we find him, and while I try and get in here, my name is Tristan. On camera, I've got Marcel. I was hoping our kudu was going to... Oh, there, it's now made a big noise. I was hoping our kudu was going to make more noise than that and that you'd be able to hear it, because it sounds just like a dog barking. It's the most unusual alarm call. Most people don't think... Oh, there he is right there. Most people don't think a kudu can make a sound like that, but they do. I think the kudu has moved away, but Tingana's just on the mound right here. So obviously that kudu was moving along and managed to spot him. Oh, there it is. You hear it? So it's warning everybody that it's seen this leopard, and telling everybody that there is a leopard around and to be careful. Now Tingana, you can see, is not too phased by this, and even though it's very, very close, I mean, they're probably about 15 meters apart between the kudu and where he is, you'll find that that's still too far for this leopard to even catch this kudu, and he could potentially bring it down. I've seen him with fully grown female kudu before, but you'll find that in this situation, if he was to run towards the kudu, that kudu would immediately run away and he wouldn't be able to get anywhere near it. You can see now he's readjusting and he's just making himself nice and comfortable. He's not too perturbed by the kudu itself. Now this particular mound here used to be one of Tingana's favorite mounds. I haven't seen him on it for very, very, very long now, but back in 2015, 2016, 2017, we used to see him on this mound regularly. And it's almost like he started to walk all his old routes again, which is super interesting. Why he's doing that, like I said, I don't know. It could be that he's starting to feel like he needs to push and take up space that these other males are not utilizing due to the fact that they are competing kind of more to the west at the moment. I don't know. Either that or he knows that these areas are all successful areas in order to be able to find potential prey items. Magic Dragon, you say you just love Tingana. I think you and a lot of others. He's an amazing leopard. I mean, we know that he's been around for years and that he is an individual that has commanded a lot of respect due to the fact that he's managed to raise so many offspring, one, and two, he's managed to hold dominance for so long and come back from multiple setbacks and multiple challenges from other males. You know, we've seen him kind of, yes, give way a little bit to Anderson, but still not lose territory completely. We've seen him kind of compete with Mvula, with Hukamuri, Mulawati, Gijima. So he's kind of held off all these other males for long periods of time, which is pretty amazing. I'm going to go forward a little bit just so we have a better view. Not really that great with the grass. The kudu hasn't run very far. It's staying fairly close. They generally don't run too far when they can actually see the cat. Unless the cat starts to move, then you find that they'll kind of push away a bit. There we go. Oh, so nice to have him kind of at eye level. It's always the sort of dream is when you have animals at eye level. It gives you a much better sense for their size and scale. It's almost 'cause it feels like you're at the same kind of height that they would be, and it often makes them just feel that much more impressive. And not that Tingana really needs to do that, but given how big his shoulders are and his head, he's a massive, massive individual, despite us being at the same height as he is. Now, I expect what's going to happen is he's going to wait for this kudu to leave, because he doesn't want to be shouted at that much. It's cooled right down with a bit of a storm that started to kind of brew, and I would imagine once the kudu's passed, then he's going to get up and start to move again, and hopefully he's going to come into Djuma, because at the end of the day, we're right on the boundary between Simambili and Djuma at the moment. Anushka, we don't know that, just purely because we don't actually know when his date of birth is. So we can't say that he's the oldest. The oldest confirmed leopard that we have or see on Djuma is Thandi. So she's 14. In fact, yeah, it would be Thandi. And Sele's a little bit younger. And then I'd probably say Tingana after that. So that would be the kind of... sort of, he would be pipped, I think, a little bit by Thandi, although it's difficult to say, like I say, because we don't know his exact age. We can't be sure, but Thandi will be 14 now in December, and so he theoretically could be 14, he could be 13, he could even be 12. We don't know, he might even be 15. So he could be the oldest, but as far as what we definitely know, Thandi is the kind of oldest one that we have confirmation on Djuma at the moment. The rest of our leopards, funnily enough, are actually fairly young. So we've got a lot of younger individuals. If you look at Tlalamba, you look at even Sabui and the youngsters, who else? Nzutini, Tiani, these are not old leopards. Shadulu, Kara, all much younger generation. Even Luna, which is a leopard we were talking about a little bit this morning, who I think Trishana is going to try to see if she can find up in Buffelshoek this afternoon. These are all much, much, much younger individuals, and so it's nice to have a lot of young females, particularly because it means you're going to have many years of being able to view them. And you see he's watching the kudu through the bush. The kudu's kind of staring at him, and he's staring at the kudu. I wouldn't be surprised that kudu starts barking again. What might happen is if this kudu moves into a place where he thinks he can sneak up on it without it seeing him, you might see him actually try and even hunt it. I suspect, though, that this kudu is going to be very, very wary. You see how he's dropped his head down? Now, the reason he's dropped his head down is because that kudu's just crossed the road now and is actually coming towards where we are. It's a little bit further away from where it initially started, but he's dropping his head so as this kudu doesn't see him, and he might then get a chance to be able to hunt down this kudu. Like I said to you, this is a prey animal that he is able to overpower. Even though it is so large, these guys can bring them down. The problem is that they very, very, very seldom are able to keep a kudu kill of that size, purely based off the fact that hyenas get to them long before they're able to actually pull it down. This kudu is very unaware, or very aware of what's going on. It's sniffing a lot, using its ears, trying to figure out where exactly this leopard is. I'm sure it knows it's here. It just doesn't know exactly where at this stage. You see how he's doing his best to stay as hidden as possible. The kudu's turned and gone the opposite way. So it's just so thick, it's very difficult for you guys, or for myself, to be able to show this kudu. It's on the other side of a very dense thicket. I can just see its ears moving around. Now you see, because it's crossed the road onto the other side, he's popped his head back up and is just watching. But hopefully this will pull him into Djuma. Let's see how it goes. We'll just be patient and wait to see what the Duke gets up to.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to andBeyond in Ngala. We've got some beautiful storm clouds building up over here in the low veld, and you can feel the change in the atmosphere. It's warming up, it's becoming humid, and there's a whole lot of insects out, which means the birds are out. I don't know if you can hear them in the background. So we've got a really, really stunning day building here. It's been incredibly hot the whole day. I'm actually sitting in the riverbed. You can see the rock face. My name is Tessa. I'm going to be your guide on safari this afternoon at andBeyond and Ngala. Behind the camera, we have BK this afternoon. And I'm actually down in the riverbed scanning through this big rock face that's here on my left-hand side. And I'm actually looking for a leopard because there were tracks of those two leopards this morning, a male and a female together. And so I've been looking for them here because their tracks crossed over north of the riverbed to this rock face that you see. But it's an absolutely stunning day to be down in the riverbed. It is nice and cool here because there's a slight breeze coming through. And so what I'm hoping that means with the storm clouds building up and with the change happening, I think a lot of the animals are hiding, but it would be really good for a leopard to start getting active earlier today in this weather. They really do seem to be more successful at hunting when it's overcast or when there's a storm building. And it's just absolutely stunning out here today. So the clouds that you can see at the moment are actually quite patchy, but all around me on all the other sides, there's this very dark grey sky. Jean, it actually has been changing. So the rain that we normally get at andBeyond and Ngala, I would say is usually between, say, 250 and 300 millimeters is what we would want in a year, what it used to be. But unfortunately with climate change, that has changed a lot. It can be a bit higher some years, it can be a bit lower. We have actually had a few days, I remember there was a storm beginning of last year that was quite intense, and we got, I think it was about 120 millimeters of rain in 2 days. And that was like a flash flood, and then this riverbed actually flowed for a short stretch of time over a very small stretch of the river. But it was very exciting for us because, you know, you get to drive through the Timbavati riverbed in your vehicle and you actually get to see water flowing, and that just hasn't happened consistently since 2012. But the averages, I think, all over the world are currently changing with climate change becoming more of an issue. We are in our rainy season at the moment, so we have had quite a bit of decent rain. 2 days ago we got about 25 millimeters of rain in the space of maybe half an hour, which was really lovely. It was a beautiful downpour. And actually our forecast for the next kind of 5 days from tonight is that we will be getting storms coming in with a bit of rain. So we are hoping so. It is probably the greenest that I've seen at this time of the year since I've been here, actually, in the whole 3 years. Because I think for the first time since I've been here, we actually got rain on time. It started raining in spring. Nice and early, whereas some years it's actually only started raining halfway through summer. So when we get to about January, then we actually get some rain. And so it's really lovely to see all the different shades of green in this riverbed and to see storm clouds building. There's always a bit of excitement among all the different guides here when there's a bit of a storm building up. It just feels so different out on safari. And actually I've already noticed just driving around a bit this afternoon that the animals have already picked up that there is a storm coming. And so things like impalas and wildebeest, which we'd normally see everywhere, all of these beautiful clearings that we've driven past have been completely clear of animals. And I think that's because they know the predators are going to be more active. But also maybe they're trying to find a thicket somewhere to prepare themselves for the downpour that's coming. But it's an absolutely stunning, stunning afternoon here. And I'm loving that all of the birds are starting to call a bit more. George, my favorite non-mammalian animal. Oh, that's a good one. I would say... Oh, wait, I actually need to think about this. I actually want to say a rock python. I think that snakes are incredibly beautiful. They're something that has always intrigued me. In fact, one of my honors studies in science was on reptiles, so I really do enjoy them. But yeah, I think rock pythons are just absolutely incredible with their markings and their size. I really do enjoy those, but I'm fascinated by any snakes. I love chameleons, even frogs, unless they're, you know, like on me, then I'm not the best with them. But yeah, I think snakes would have to be my best guess there for my next favorite. I do have some favorite birds too. I love a purple roller. I think it's really stunning, all the different shades and the dusty purple that's on it. I actually also really enjoy insects, which I think a lot of people don't. I actually studied insects, so I really do enjoy those as well. But I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to carry on down the riverbed for a little bit, see if I can find those tracks of those two leopards, and hopefully we can find them for you this afternoon.
Okay, so it hasn't gone too far. Welcome back to Tswalu. And we're just about to crest over our second dune going out west, and this very large oryx was in the way. You can see it's got a little bit of a limp. It looks like it's got a bit of an injury on its front right shoulder. And we can see it's the front right is when it drops its head. So let me try and roll back here for us. Welcome to Carl's Eco Tours. I wish vehicles were this quiet. Let's see if we can get a nice gap over here. You let me know, Owen. Oh, sorry, folks. My apologies. That's my bad. Sorry, Owen. He's going to move a little bit more while busy feeding here, so we might as well predict his movements. What a beautiful animal. This is a bull, a male southern oryx. And he does look a little old, so maybe it's just a little bit of wear and tear on the joints that he's experiencing right now. And it's not uncommon for these individuals to have major injuries. Males fight vigorously, obviously for the access to females, but even females fight one another. Even within the herd, there is a very strict ranking system. Obviously, the largest and more aggressive individual will be higher ranked. And individuals don't like to even get close to one another. They will definitely ward off an individual that gets too close to them via using those horns. But if for a solitary individual like this, only male and male conflict that he could experience or get injured. Those long horns are serious weapons. Let's do another little roll back. Let's see if we can get another little gap. He's busy grazing, and obviously they're very versatile animals living in harsh conditions or harsh environments. So it's not uncommon for him to tap into a bit of grazing, so eating of grass, and then also browsing, eating of the bushes. Oh. Jerry, is there any specific reason for the markings on their face? So the markings, if you take a look, those markings basically follow the same line or trajectory of the horns. So if you look from the bottom of the chin going up, it actually meets the basal section of the horn. So I believe it's definitely to accentuate the length of those horns, also to give the animal an off visual appearance. So if you look at it, if that animal is staring a lion down, those black lines running straight up with horns really can be quite daunting for a lion. And then also for mate recognition or species recognition, those facial markings will be very important for this specific species, along with its coat, its behavior when it comes to species recognition. But a white and black face is definitely, I think, a property of trying to warn off or give predators the false notion that those horns are actually longer than they are. I mean, that length is long, but they are vicious and very, very dangerous weapons. Those black lines could also be, adaptation to absorb light. So if you look at cheetah, they've got those black tear lines running from the duct all the way down to the bottom jaw. Those lines running through the actual eye could also be an aid in absorbing glare and, obviously bright conditions like we're experiencing right now. It shows you the wonderful little fine details and tweaks that Mother Nature has for these animals in order to survive out here. It is really remarkable. I'm thinking about this antelope and the heat that it experiences. even allowing its internal core temperature to rise, that is only through stress levels, through very stressful conditions or periods, that this animal will allow its body to fluctuate to a massive degree. It does do that in general senses, but once it reaches a certain point, then it has other morphological adaptations that allows it to survive in areas such as Tswalu and hotter than Tswalu. If you go further west, northwest into Namibia, it's much drier and much hotter. So a very well adapted animal into these environments. General rule of thumb, if it's by itself, it's more than likely a male, which this is. So if you take a look, obviously being solitary, normally more than likely it's going to be a male, and then females like to be in little herds, especially this species. You find males wandering quite far. They do have territories, or territorial, and obviously they wander in search of females. As when females kind of wander a little bit further than males, but they like to stay within groups. So this bull could have a territory anywhere between 10 and 40 kilometers. That could obviously vary depending on availability of food, access to water. So that would vary across the board. So anywhere from 10 to 40 kilometers you could find a mature bull holding a territory.
From oryx bulls to big dominant male leopards that can also have fairly large territories as well. You can see Tingana's just changed position slightly. He's gotten himself into a situation where he's just watching what's going on around him. There's a bit of rain that's starting to fall now, and so he's been starting to yawn. I suspect that if it starts to get any harder, he's going to just try and find himself a little bit more cover than where he is right now, because right now he's right out in the open and exposed. And we know that cats generally are not huge fans of rain. They don't like it at all. In fact, last week I was sitting with the Talamatis and the rain came bucketing down and sent these cats scurrying for the nearest bush. It was quite entertaining to watch. So I think if it gets any heavier, we might see him just find a little thicket and lie down. But he watched that kudu for a while, and then I think there was something else that walked behind us, because he all of a sudden kind of perked up and then turned and faced sort of northwards. But for now, whatever it was, it's clearly not that interesting. But if you do see on his sort of neck, on the right side of his neck there, where his kind of paws are, you'll notice that there's blood that's on the fur. So this morning I was saying that it looks like he's had a meal and he was grooming himself quite intensively. And on that sort of right part of the neck, you can actually see the reddish kind of bloody sort of patch. That's often indicative of where they've that they've eaten fairly recently. And so that could have been anything from civets to impala lambs to porcupines to really anything. He's at that age now where he hunts all kinds of random stuff. In fact, actually, Tingana all through his life has hunted random stuff. He's been known to take pythons and aardvarks and all kinds of different things. So he's a bit of a busy cat when it comes to that. And so I expect, though, that what he would have taken would have been a lamb. They're pretty plentiful at the moment and fairly easy to hunt comparatively. A lot of the other animals that have been around for a little bit are well versed in what to do when seeing a leopard, whereas these lambs, particularly if they're brand new, still learning the ropes and often make mistakes and make it easy for an experienced cat like himself to be able to do things. Half-hearted yawn. All these yawns are all good indications, though, that he's eventually going to start moving. Like I say, it's one of those 50-50 calls, but generally when you see them yawning, it's the oxygen kind of getting flowing, and it's always a good indication that potentially they're thinking about moving. Oh, sorry about that. That's just Game Drive Radio. It's making a little bit of a noise. So Chad's, the color of a leopard's nose and even lions to a degree, a lot of people in the past have always thought that that's how to age these animals. It's not always the case. We have leopards that we've seen in this area. This is a proper yawn. Oh, look at those teeth. Those teeth are still looking good. I mean, they're a little bit yellow, but still long, not too blunt. So he's looking very, very good in terms of teeth condition. But we have had leopards here. So to give you an idea, Tandi's sister, Shadow, who we used to see, who unfortunately went missing, she, at the age of 11, 12 years old, still had a very pink nose. It looked like she was a cub. Her nose was so pink. So it's not always the case with leopards. I've seen lots of different leopards. Tingy, did you just fall over? I think he wanted to roll and didn't quite have the right spot and almost fell off the side of the mound. But I've seen a number of different leopards that have had very, very pink, bright noses late on in life. And I've seen a lot that have been born with very dark noses. So it's not really a great tool to use for leopards, particularly in aging. All right, well, we're going to carry on with Tingy. Lots of yawning going on, and so hopefully he's going to take us on an afternoon stroll at some point.
Welcome back to andBeyond Ngala, everybody. So I've actually just found a pair of Wahlberg's eagles. There's one at the bottom of the tree, one hiding in the thicket above. And they are both being mobbed consistently by fork-tailed drongos. And I always find it fascinating to watch this because the drongos are so tenacious. They do not give up. They don't seem to be scared at all. And they come down and mob. They're actually busy, I think, in the thicket with the other one that we can't see. And that one on the bottom, the Wahlberg's eagle at the bottom, is just sitting, looking out, watching for any signs of food. And it's actually, I was expecting to see quite a few birds of prey today, some raptors. Because of the weather, there's a lot of termite alates coming out. There might be some snakes trying to warm up on the tops of termite mounds or in clear pathways. So I think that's exactly what these Wahlberg's eagles are looking for. They're looking for anything small to eat as it gets closer and closer to nightfall. And with the storm coming in, it's just absolutely perfect. You can actually hear the eagle calling if you listen. There's a lot of bird activity here. We're actually sitting, this tree's close to a very small mud wallow. So I think that's why this pair is here. They might even have a nest somewhere close by. But this is definitely the best place for them to be looking for food at the moment, high up in a tree, in an open area with water to attract animals and insects. And quite a few termite mounds around for those termite eruptions of the alates coming out. We had a massive eruption last night. So I'm going to sit here and see what they...
Yoni Dam, Timboti Dam, 5 ways.
Where are you heading now?
Jason, I might head to the flatland. I'm at Mvobo Dam now.
Enjoy WildEarth.
All right, so unfortunately, as it sometimes goes out here in the African wilderness, is we lose a little bit of our tech, and so you're with us back in Djuma, north of where Phinda is. Now, as you can see, Tingana is still sitting, still taking it easy. He is yawning, scratching. He's not sitting still by any stretch of the imagination, so I don't think he's settled. What I think we need to hope for, though, is we need to hope for these clouds just to part slightly. There's quite a lot of blue sky, and once that happens, the sun's going to come out, and it should be fairly warm where he's sitting now. There's not too much shade around him, and so I'm hoping that will kind of motivate him to start moving. The problem with that is it might motivate him just to start moving straight under a tree and to go to sleep. Often when we get conditions like this, where it's a little bit overcast, there's a bit of rain around, that's always good conditions for leopards to be moving around and kind of potentially hunting and looking for food, although that does not look promising in terms of hunting and looking for food. In fact, it almost looks like he's said, that's it, I've had enough. It stopped raining, and so I'm happy to take a nap right here instead. It can't be comfortable though. His kind of neck is at an odd angle, sort of lower than his body. It doesn't look comfy. I expect him to probably start moving at some point. There we go. Are you battling to get comfortable, boy? Ooh. Leopards, Lovey, you're asking what do I think has the thickest fur? Leopards, lions, or cheetah? I think they're all pretty similar, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously male lions are going to win that race due to the fact that they've got these big collars of fur in terms of their manes. But if we're just talking general kind of body fur, I think they're all in a very similar boat. I don't think any of them really have too much thicker fur. Cheetahs tend to have very furry tummies, but then again, so do leopards. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty dead race between all of them. I don't think there's really too much in it between all three individuals, or all three species, should I say. And you probably find there's a little bit of a genetic element to it too, where some individuals within the species might have longer fur than others, particularly those that occur in colder climates. You would expect their fur to grow a little bit longer for more insulation. So yeah, I mean, I've never really noticed one species having much longer fur than the other. It always kind of seems pretty even across all three. Yeah, so Marcel's saying that maybe the lion might have coarser fur. Yeah, potentially. I mean, all of them have pretty coarse fur on the back ends, but I suppose a lion does have fairly coarse fur. So that's true. But in terms of length, I think they're all pretty similar. Now, the rain has started again. I don't know where this rain is coming from, because there's not even a dark cloud above us, but we'll sit it out and wait. It looks like Tingana's fairly happy with the raindrops on his tummy, so we'll just be patient and see what he gets up to.
Welcome to andBeyond Phinda. We here and sitting with the rhino. It's really nice to see Tristan with the leopard. Hello everyone. My name is Busane. Behind the camera we got Glenn. And it's really nice. We've been spending a lot of time with this rhino. And we're grazing around. Have a look at them. And they've got like a reddish mud on their body. And they've been wallowing in a water hole not too far from here. And now they all are enjoying this lush green grass around this area. See, they're running away. It's because of the lightning. Apparently, we have a very big lightning and the storm as well, the thunder. You can just hear it. And earlier on, there were 5 white rhinos around here. And now we're only sitting with these 2. And it's a very windy day. It's a very windy day today. And they do feel a little bit nervous and because they don't have very good sense of eyesight. Have a look at the size of their eyes compared to their body size. They've got tiny little eyes. So that is why, have a look how they're constantly twitching their ears from side to side. So they're trying to find out what's around them. And the sense of smell, they've got very good sense of smell. And now they relax again. They've got their head down. They're still looking around, making sure that in the area where they are, it's very safe. But now, because of the wind that's blowing from us to them, they can hear us very well. And now they've seen that we're not a threat. Are they grazing again? Do you see that red, like on their side of the body? They've been lying down in a water hole, as I said. And have a look at the color of the ground, of the soil around where they are. It's quite red. It's quite rich in iron. And it was a nice hot day today, so they may be around the water hole for the rest of the day, trying to cool themselves down. And now, because it's nice and cool, so they're going to feed around here through the whole day, because they also classify as animals that are they're known as crepuscular, which is the animal that active early hours of the morning and late in the afternoon.
I think we've lost signal.
Lost signal. Oh no.
That's going to happen. I've lost signal. I think we lost. There it goes.
So you want me to go a little bit forward?
Take that call. Is it going to auto answer? Yo, this lightning, eh?
They're not phoning me yet. They're not phoning me.
Whose is that? Is that another one?
Maybe.
Welcome back to Tswalu Kalahari. So going over the third dune, this is so distinctive you cannot miss it. It's a very large flowering geophyte. So we've looked at one or two other geophytes over the past few days, and that is a plant that has a large bulb that remains dormant underground and flowers, and as well as leaves when favorable times are ahead. And this is one of them. This is a brand new species for me, first time on my 4 years here on this beautiful land that I've got to, well, I've had the pleasure of seeing. This is a thick stemmed cranium and a very beautiful plant. It's a geophyte, it's up to 40 centimeters tall with a relatively few or low amount of leaves. And if you can see very closely there, the leaves are very distinctive. I'm actually going to get a little bit closer just to show you there. We're going to see that the leaves are going to be wavy at the margin's edge. So this is the end, the left or right side of the actual leaf. And you're going to see this beautiful wavy pattern. You still got my audio there, Owen? Got me, all right. So let me lift it up here for you folks to see this wavy margin. Look at that. It's very, very distinctive when it comes to leaf shape. And what I'm talking about the margin, this section right over here. You can see how it has this beautiful wave-like appearance. Also very long, very strap-like. And compared to the other ones I've been looking at, this is very, very prominent, very distinctive. But what a wonderful flower to be looking at. I wonder if there's a little beetle inside. Obviously beetles will be main pollinators and obviously scurrying in here and even finding refuge inside a plant like this. One thing that's very fascinating for me, the leaf is very cool. So if I can feel the ambient temperature, it's quite warm, and if I grab this leaf, I've got a quick sense of cool, or like very light coolness to the leaf. It's quite remarkable. The first time I've ever noticed that. but a brand new species for me, and what a treat it is to see these geophytes. Just with the available water that we've been receiving now, we have received between 100 and about 150 mils of water already, which is fantastic for this early flowering boom, so to say. And over my time at Tswalu, this is the first time that I'm seeing species like this. So every day going out here is almost like an adventure of like, what am I going to find? It's really remarkable and a very nice feeling to be able to be in a position that I'm in, to be able to experience such wonders such as that. Absolutely fantastic. So brand new one for me. And we looked at that saw-eye lily the other day, which has got that almost like sphere of multiple flowers with those big strap-like leaves. But fantastic. We're going to send you off from this windy place for a little bit, and we'll see you shortly.
Well, it's always exciting when you see something new and find a new flower or insect or bird or whatever it may be. It's always very good. As you can see, not much has changed on our side. Tingana is still, well, just enjoying his mound. He's got himself, somehow has sneakily found himself in the only shade that there is. You can see on either side of them, there's a tree that's giving, its kind of stem is just providing just enough shade to cover his body, bar his tail. So his little tail, unfortunately, is being baked by the sun. But otherwise, he's positioned himself pretty perfectly. And like I say, I've seen him on this mound so many times that I suppose he knows exactly where he needs to lie in order to be able to get some sort of shade and have a nice place to rest. And I think now that it's starting to get much hotter, you're going to see that this cat is going to eventually start to relax and kind of fall asleep until it cools down late in the afternoon, and then we'll start to see him sort of moving over and onto, I would imagine, Djuma, because where we had him today is behind where he is now, so he was deeper inside Simambili. So the course of the day he's moved south and east quite a lot. Well, not quite a lot, I mean it's not that far, but it's far enough considering how hot it was. And has kind of positioned himself here. So if we use that as a measure for where he might go, generally leopards tend to follow the same directions unless, something dictates their movement, which could be in the form of prey or another predator. Normally they kind of follow on from where they generally started to head. So I expect him to probably keep going sort of eastwards and back into Djuma. Now, I don't think he's been seen since we saw him last week crossing into the west, which means that he spent a good 4 or 5 days on this side. Now, Greece, I don't know if I got your question correctly, but you're saying cats, whether large or small, something dependent on water. I think that's what you were saying. Is that right, Marcel? Did I get that right? Broke up a little bit. Why do they try to avoid water? Well, Greece, they don't always. I've seen lions sleeping in water with their heads on sandbanks. I've seen leopards crossing rivers without trying to jump them. I've seen tigers do it all the time. So if you go into India, tigers spend more time in water than they do on land. Or so it seems in the hot summer months there. So cats don't always avoid water. But the reason for being nervous of water, particularly here in Africa and even in India, is because there's very, very dangerous things that live in water, and they're called crocodiles. And no matter how big a cat you are, a crocodile can cause either death or severe injury. And so cats are inherently very nervous of water because of that reason. And so you'll find the only time cats are fairly comfortable around water is when it is very, very shallow. So the lions that I was telling you about, they were lions called the Charleston Pride down in the south of the Sabi Sands, and they used to actually sleep in the Sand River. So they would lie with their backs and their bums in the river and their head on a sandbank. And the river was just deep enough that it would kind of just go over where their tail was. So it was perfect for cooling down, but not deep enough to have to worry about crocodiles grabbing them. And they were quite big lions at that point. It was an adult female and 2 quite large sub-adult males. So, those kind of water points are okay. And also in India, a lot of the tigers just lie in sort of little water holes that have been created, or natural occurring mud wallows, if you want to call it that, rather than big, deep sections of water. And to prove that point, I when I was at Lion Sands on the Sabi River, so a different river system, we once had a lioness crossing the river, and she was crossing with her cubs. So she was taking one cub across with her mouth, and so she picked up this cub, waded across the river and dropped it off on the other bank, and she came back again and picked up the other cub, one of the other cubs. There was another one still after that, and she was wading in water that was about chest deep, and as she went across for the second time, a crocodile grabbed her on the face, and she, because her face was a little bit wet, was able to actually pull her face out of the crocodile's mouth, but unfortunately the crocodile latched onto the cub and pulled the cub out of the mom's mouth and just disappeared and went. And so that's why they're so nervous of water. It's why big, small doesn't really matter. If it's an area that has got deep water and it's within these natural places, generally there's a huge threat that exists in there. And like I say, that is crocodiles. So I hope that answers the question. It's why they always say in Africa, you don't trust anything, any water, not even your own bath water. So it's because crocodiles can be right there without being seen. There's a number of people that have come very, very short when it's come to crocodiles and the way that they're able to be so stealthy and sneaky in pools of water or bodies of water, even ones that are perceived to be fairly shallow and devoid of crocodiles. So then you say somebody got taken last week. Marcel saying somebody got taken last week by a crocodile. I think it happens a lot more than we realize in Africa. There's a lot of people that rely on rivers in Africa, particularly, in rural parts where rivers are not only a water source, but they're a place for clothes to be washed. They're obviously a place where kids play because, well, kids are kids. And, water is often a fun place, particularly when it's hot. And so that leads to a number of people being taken without anyone actually even knowing. All right, well, let's rather sit and watch Tingana and stop dwelling on the macabre and rather think about how beautiful this cat is and see what he's going to get up to for the afternoon.
We were actually here in Buffelshoek and Kayamanzi Access looking for a kill that was reported this morning of what might have been Luna, and then we came across the Telemati bird. One second, we've just come across them, so the Game Drive radio is going a bit nuts. There we go. Hopefully someone's helped me out. They seem to have made a kill. There's lots of movement, but I can't see what it is they've got. Can you hear that crunching? I saw a photo of this lioness with this injury, and can you hear? They pretty much surrounded us. We saw three of them further back, and then I wanted to just drive further ahead and check out if we could see the kill. And then we see the rest of the pride mooching about. There's a hyena that was close by too. I feel like we might have just missed whatever happened here. Getting a bit crazy on the Game Drive radio. Excuse me if I have to respond to anybody. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out what's happened and where the kill is. Clearly this, you can hear this one individual crunching. Can't see what it is that it's got. Perfectly positioned branch as well, as usual, actually. Okay, well, I am going to get everyone who wants to see the sighting here and then try and find out what's going on. Hopefully we'll find the kill.
Welcome to andBeyond Phinda. We've got 2 white rhinos here. We've been watching them for quite some time now. Have a look how they're busy enjoying. Hello everyone, my name is Busani. I've got Client behind the camera. Sorry about the cut that happened earlier on, but we're back on the rhinos now. And have a look how they've been lying down in the heat of the day, because today it was really hot. You can see the red line on their body. They've been lying, wallowing down, trying to cool themselves down. And have a look around the area where they are. There's a little bit of the red soil, so it's quite the area where they are. It's quite rich in iron. But we just had like a big thunder in the last couple of minutes, and we've got like a slight rain, but it seems like it's going away now. So we're quite happy to be able to see these rhinos, because in some areas you don't really find rhinos because of the rhino poaching that's happening in South Africa. It's really shocking. But have a look how while they're busy eating, how they're changing ears from side to side. So they do rely a lot on the sense of hearing. They don't have very good eyesight. Have a look how small are their eyes compared to the body side. That's amazing to see the white rhinos feeding, and they constantly Simati, I have like a very good experience about the rhinos. I did get to see them mostly. Earlier on, there were 5 rhinos here. There were a male and a female. Probably there was a female that was going on to estrus. So I have seen them mating. We don't really get to see the rhinos mating. So it was really nice to see them. And we got them mating for about an hour. It was really amazing. And sometimes, because we are the private game reserve, we can do walks and follow up on rhinos with guests on foot, which is a very nice experience to get to see rhinos on foot. And now, because it's cooler, so they're going to carry on feeding along and enjoying this lush green grass. So rhinos are the animals that you clarify as crepuscular animal, which is the animal that active early hours of the morning and late in the afternoon. So they're going to keep grazing around here up until it gets really dark. Then after that, they will find a nice place sheltered with no wind, away from the wind, and it's where they will spend the night. So it does look like, if you look at the one on the left, the one in front, you can just see the folded skin just behind the legs. And I have noticed that the 2 of them, so that's actually the way you tell whether it's a male or female. So these are the 2 younger males. So they're busy grazing along. They don't have a particular territory where they defend with another male, so they're still very young. And we've got like a view. There's another tree at the distance. I'm going to quickly ask Clan, can you get us a shot there? There's 3 over there. You see the one at the back, the slightly bigger than the 2. So that's a male. So probably in one of those 2, look like the 2 young females. So the male, it might be trying his lucky, trying to follow those females. Okay, I think what are we going to do? We're going to move on and try to find some other animals before we lose light. It was really nice to see these rhinos.
It makes me jealous when the guys get to spend time with those incredible animals because here we don't spend really any time with rhinos at all. So it's always nice when the guys get to show them to all of you. It's such an iconic species and an animal that deserves a huge amount of attention in order to try and get it sorted. But here we go. I think that's it for Tingy. He's decided time to move and time to go. He might do a little... Oh, no, Tingana. Luckily, we're not downwind because that's coming out there is not going to smell very pleasant at all. In fact, that is going to be rather stinky. I suspect that, unfortunately, what ever he ate is coming out the other side looking like, and never very pleasant when a cat goes to the toilet. I must admit, though, they are not as bad as lions. Lions seem somehow to have a much more pungent poo smell than what a leopard does. Are you going to go down into the hole? No? Yes? No. I think he's going to go to Djuma. That's what I think is about to happen. I think we're about to see him crossing back onto our side, which is really good news. There are some other vehicles that are in the sighting, so we're going to have to just kind of leapfrog a little bit in order to kind of keep up with him, but off he strides, and I'm sure he's going to cross the road fairly shortly. Awesome. I'm glad that he's up and moving. Hopefully he's going to take us on a good journey, and hopefully he's going to go do a spot of hunting at some point, because now he's just, flopped down right there. Of course, yes. Okay, we're going to reposition. Hopefully he'll keep up with him at some point.
This warthog has been enjoying a well-deserved spa day, good old-fashioned mud wallow, to try and cool down on this incredibly hot and humid low-felt afternoon. But although it's hot and humid, it's quite pleasant sitting quietly at this dam. Hi everyone, I'm Mike Anderson, and behind the camera is Sebastian Rombe. He's joined us again after a bit of a stint at Ngala. Welcome back, Seb.
Thank you.
We are sitting here at Leopard Dam, just waiting to see what comes down. We've had some impalas come down, there's some geese, and of course the warthog is enjoying his mud wallow, attended by a few oxpeckers. But as you can see there, the geese sifting through the shallow, muddy water there at the edge, looking for any small organisms, any insects, maybe little bits of algae, some vegetation, any seeds that might be floating there. You don't often get to see geese feeding just like that. That's pretty awesome. And watch what they do. They might even be shifting their feet in the mud, trying to disturb insects. You might see them shuffling their feet around. So that is an adult and 3 goslings that are left from the original clutch, which I'm not sure how many there was, 5 or 6. 3 left, doing pretty well, much better than our ones at Ndlovu Dam, which have 0 out of 6. They didn't do too good at all. Very shy, these geese and goslings. They don't ever seem to want to be on the same side of the dam as where we are, which is good. That's why they're surviving, because they're cautious. They're heading now in the direction of the warthog, although they're still a bit. You can see the large adult in the middle, mother or father, I'm not sure, and the 3 goslings, who are getting larger now. They'll soon be able to start stretching their wings and practicing their flying. Not just yet, but soon. But right now, probably more than anything else, just enjoying the fact that the water is nice and cool. Look, that one's even having a bath. See in the background there? It was dipping its head in, see, like that? Getting water under its feathers and then using its comb-like bill to brush through its feathers to make sure they're all neat and tidy and waterproof. If those feathers get too messy, then they won't be waterproof anymore. Which is what makes ducks and geese able to float like that and swim so effectively on the waters. Look at the top of the water. Do you see how many insects are dipping and splashing in the water there? Do you see that? There are a lot of little bubbles and things there. That's all insect activity. That's what the geese are busy trying to feed on. Now, I can assure you that these insects are also landing on us. I am feeling every now and again little bugs landing on me because we've got moisture on our skin, and they're after the moisture. On hot days like today, everything needs the water. So there go the Egyptian goose waddling out of the water, probably going to go and head into some shade somewhere nearby. They might even head towards wherever their nest is. We still don't know where the nest is exactly. They're going to go and do a bit of a groom session, maybe even a dust bathe, and then come and rinse off the feathers again later. These geese, just like most birds, produce something called preen oil, which is released from a gland just above the tail, and they rub that oil through their feathers, which helps them to remain nice and shiny and, smooth and waterproof. But too much of the oil will start making their feathers all gummed up. And so they do need to dust bathe every now and again in order to soak up the excess oil. Very important. Very important when you're a bird. If your feathers are not in any way perfect, you're going to be really, really at a disadvantage against predators, against rivals, for flying, for swimming. Feathers are basically everything to a bird. Without feathers, what is a bird? Is a bird even a bird without feathers? I don't think so. A few doves as well coming to the water. We saw BK and I yesterday morning, just the sheer amount of doves coming down to this waterhole. It's crazy. Jerome, that's a good question, and I mean, I've definitely seen a lion and buffalo. If we're only talking about mammals, lion, buffalo, elephant, 3 species, probably impala in the background and a warthog. I mean, that's quite normal here at Pride Lands to see 4 or 5 species at the waterhole at any one time, especially at this time of year now when it is very, very hot. Animals tend to follow patterns with each other. So as soon as one comes down, others will also come down knowing that it's probably quite safe. I mean, we had at the other waterhole at Ndlovu Dam, I think it was this morning or yesterday, I can't remember, they all start to melt together when it's so warm like this. Your brain stops functioning. But we had giraffes, wildebeest, buffalo, elephant, and impala. And zebra, in fact. So we had 6 different species coming down at the same time, which is quite cool. Now, if you count birds, then we're getting into the 50s and 60s of different species that might be around this waterhole at the same time. And we know there's definitely a black mamba that lives on these knobthorn trees to the left of where those geese are. 100% there's a snake living in there because we see it frequently. We've seen it 2 or 3 times now, and we've also seen the black mamba, and we've also seen the African rock python as well in that little tree line. And monkeys and baboons often go down there where the geese are right now. That's their sort of main place they go and drink, and where they sit in the sand before they go and roost in some of the larger trees along this drainage line. If you can hear any sound in the background, that is a train just passing by to our north. And it comes past a couple times a day, transporting all sorts of goods to Mozambique, I believe. But don't quote me on that. Apart from the train, very quiet here at the waterhole at the moment. Some of the birds are sitting... Oh, there's some Swainson's spurfowl crossing just in front of us here, which are really cool little birds. Very noisy, very aggressively noisy little birds. I'm sure you've seen them before with their red faces. Swainson's spurfowl. heading off to find their roost for the evening before it gets dark.
We are back in the Timavati riverbed at andBeyond in Ngala, and there is a very relaxed looking troop of baboons here that are all busy grooming each other. And it's actually so hot that they're all sticking to that one little patch of shade because the rest of the riverbed is in the sun at the moment. And it's actually quite interesting because normally baboons are incredibly active during the day. They'll be up in the trees, roosted at night, or up on the branches. And so normally when you see them in the riverbed, they'd be moving along, digging. But these ones are just looking so nice and relaxed. I think they're enjoying the breeze and really enjoying the shade. So this is really normal for baboons to be grooming each other the way that they are, because they are quite social animals. And so they do actually, it's not only that they, helping each other get clean, but it's actually part of bonding. And so you'll often find a big male grooming, say, a female that might be coming into estrus. Anyone that's particularly fond of another baboon, those two baboons will allo groom each other when they groom one another. But it's quite cute because they all seem to be in different poses at the moment. So they're stretched out in all the different ways and all the places that are needing a bit of a groom. There was actually one lying flat on its stomach just now, and the other one was cleaning it all the way up its back. I've always thought the chacma baboons were incredibly intelligent, which they are. So, especially here in this section of the riverbed, you would expect there to be quite a few leopards and things like that with all the tall trees. But this is a really good indication that there probably isn't. So baboons are one of the best indicators specifically of predators. They are very sensitive to lions and to hyenas and to leopards. And so when they're this relaxed, it's usually meaning that maybe there aren't any predators around. As soon as there's a predator that comes in, they would not be relaxing. They would be up, they'd be alarm calling. The younger ones would be running to the banks trying to climb the trees. And so whenever we hear a baboon barking, a really loud alarm call, that's where we want to go and have a look. Did you hear that sound? That was a vulture coming out of the tree. They've got such big wings. There's actually quite a few here. They're hooded vultures. And they've been nesting along this section of the river. And now they're just catching the thermals here along the riverbank. So as the ground is heating up in the sun, the air is heating. And that is causing a thermal where the air is rising almost like a kettle would boil in a circle. It's rising up in a circle, up in a column, and that's what helps them get really high up to start looking for food. Because they are so heavy, it would take a lot of energy to get up there by flapping. So they actually rely more on being close to the riverbed where the hot air is moving up the banks. That was amazing. The sound of that vulture coming out of the tree was incredible. But the baboons didn't even notice. They didn't mind at all. They're still nice and relaxed and grooming each other. And I've actually always found their social structure incredibly interesting. So the ones that are grooming each other would be closer to each other, personally bonded. But the ones closer to the middle, even now, with the way that they're grooming, the ones that are closer to the middle are either the younger ones or the most dominant ones. And then the least dominant ones would be on the outside because that's more vulnerable to predators. So the ones on the far left and the far right. And then the big males actually distribute themselves throughout. So this is actually part of a troop of about 200 baboons that we see at andBeyond in Ngala. Jerry, baboons can definitely get quite a few diseases. They might get some from grooming each other if it is a social disease. So when I say that, I mean it is easily transmitted between different animals, or it's transmitted maybe by touch or by bodily fluids. But ordinarily, baboons do actually have quite strong immune systems. So you don't often see sickly baboons. But yes, I should imagine that if one has something catchy from grooming each other, they might catch it, because often what they do is, as they're grooming each other, they'll actually, whatever they pick up or take out of the other one's coats, they actually put into their mouths. So maybe if it's a parasite that carries a disease of its own, they could even catch that. But they actually often say, with baboons in particular, their immune system is so strong, and also their digestive system is so strong, that if you're following a troop of baboons, you can't eat what they eat, because they can eat poisonous things and it really doesn't affect them. So I would imagine it would be more or less the same with diseases. Whereas with vervet monkeys, they're a bit more susceptible. So they say if you ever get lost in the bush, you should follow vervet monkeys and not chacma baboons, because vervet monkeys, they can only handle the same things that we can handle. They can't eat anything toxic, where a baboon would be able to eat a poisonous plant or fruit. So I think they're quite a bit stronger in general than other primates. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to leave these baboons grooming each other and relaxing here in the riverbed, and I'm going to move further on to the south, maybe see where those vultures might be going. There were a few more vultures that were reported a little bit further south of us. So I think I'm going to head there. Maybe we'll find a predator.
We're still here with the telematis, and I'm going to be quiet for a little bit, or especially when I hear them vocalizing, because they're making a lot of sound. Can you hear it faintly? They're all very, very scattered. Whatever kill they had was very small. Can you hear that faintly? So wonderful to see them moving, not just flat. Oh, hi, girl. Hi, girl. Isn't that wonderful? Our telematis have 5 lionesses and 9, I want to say cubs, but they're not cubs anymore. They're sub-adults, really. 6 females, 3 males. That's moving near me. That's some more of them right close to us. How marvelous is this sound? All right, I know this is super cool, but it seems that Prideland's got everything cooler, so why don't you go over to them?
So we have the spotted hyena which came down to Leopard Dam and was sitting at that spot where we had the geese. It's a very fat hyena, or we can't really decide, Seb and I, if it's pregnant or full. I think it's full because we can't see any milk, but it's being chased at the moment by elephants. There it goes, disappearing away as the elephants have come down to the waterhole to drink exactly where the hyena was resting. It was very interesting. It was going to stay there, and then the elephants sort of turned and changed direction slightly, and the hyena was having none of it. It dashed off as quick as it could, but it was panting heavily, and it was very much needing the water, so it was lying straight in the water. There's a nice big herd of elephants now coming down, including tiny babies as well. See there? So they're all very dark in color, these elephants. I suspect they were part of the massive group of elephants that came down to Ndlovu Dam earlier this morning when we had them later in the drive. Well, we counted almost 100 elephants in total that came and drank at some stage or other and played in the mud. So these elephants are probably part of that same group. They've had a day of feeding and now they're coming to cool off in the late afternoon. Really, really nice to see once again elephants coming down to the waterhole. It's becoming a regular fixture for us, which is so fantastic. Look at the tiny elephant just reaching down with its trunk next to its mother there, trying not to fall in. We see it quite a lot happening on these muddy banks. The elephants tend to slip and slide their way into the water. See all the elephants flapping their ears quite a lot. It's very warm. So they're trying desperately to keep their body core temperature cool. You see that? That is not a sign of any sort of aggression. It's not a sign that they're angry. It's just that they're really, really hot. So they're trying to fan the wind through behind their ears onto those veins and capillaries, which is super important. I read somewhere, or I heard somewhere, that the ears of an elephant make up almost 30% of its whole surface area. So that goes a long way to cooling them down. And swimming also helps, as we're about to see. Now, as we mentioned earlier, when one animal comes to the waterhole, you find often many more will turn up immediately afterwards, knowing that it is now safe. Remember, the more herbivores that are around the water, generally speaking, there comes the hyena back. Generally speaking, the less danger there is for the rest of them. So just over there, hyena is coming back to the water. It really wants to lie in the water. You can see how fat this hyena is. Look at this. Oh, that must be so soothing. So it looks like it's eaten a big meal. And I don't think there's been any lion activity on this section of Pride Lands over the last couple of days. So it might be that last night or the day before, a leopard might have caught something and this hyena has stolen the kill, or the hyena has been very prolific in hunting and catching the impala lambs. What have you heard? There was an elephant bull that followed that hyena to chase it off. I wonder if this hyena is just a bit worried about it. It's going to also be thinking about the potential for a crocodile in the water, so it doesn't want to go too deep into the water in case of a crocodile. I don't think there's any crocodile here. We've never seen one, but I'm not going to test the theory by going for a swim. And neither does this hyena. And this is not a young hyena. This is a fully grown adult hyena. So quite experienced, knows what it's doing. As you can see, we're parked a bit further away from the waterhole than we normally do, purely because the sun is blistering down on us. We've chosen the shadiest spot that we can find in order to keep ourselves, just like these elephants, as cool as possible. Now, they're lucky enough to be big and strong, so they don't have to worry too much about crocodiles. As you can see, this one here having a good old dunking session. But if we were to do that, I would be quite nervous about bitey things, including terrapins, in fact. We watched that terrapin plucking ticks off of the buffalo yesterday, I think it was. Now, our skin is much more soft than an elephant, and so if a terrapin wants to come and nibble on me, it's not so pleasant. Grand, I agree with you. Watching elephants use their trunks is an incredible thing. They are having, look at that baby elephant there, swinging its trunk around, splashing. Do you see it there, Seb? It doesn't really know what it's doing. It's just following what mum's doing. So it is still learning how to use its trunk properly. It's obviously able to suck a bit of water up there, but still playing and learning and stretching those muscles. There are around 40 to 50,000 individual muscles in an elephant's trunk. Now, I don't know if that number changes as they get bigger, or if they're born with 40,000. I mean, we've only got think something like 600 or something like that in our body as humans. And we take years and years before we know how to use our bodies properly. Imagine 40,000 muscles. How much time it must take for an elephant to learn how to use that properly. It's very impressive. They can extend them and shorten them. They can breathe through them. They can grip with them. A leaf or a whole tree could be pulled down with the immense strength of that trunk. I've never touched an elephant's trunk before. I really wonder what it feels like. I wonder if it's soft. Is it soft or is it really rough? Is it really firm, like really strong muscles, or is it soft? I have no idea. I reckon the tips of their ears are very soft, though. You can see how they hang down like that. This one here's, oh, that elephant has chased the hyena. Look at that. That's crazy. Why? This hyena is having not the easiest time. Just on the right of the screen there, you can just see the elephant bull just came charging down and chased that hyena once again away from its spot where it's sitting so quietly. I'm hoping that hyena will come this side now, on the opposite side of where the elephants are, to try and avoid being disturbed. So also look at this now. This scene is so different from that one which we had this morning. This morning we had dozens, if not more, 20 or 30 elephant bulls playing around the water. And they were very aggressively playing, chasing each other, splashing, pushing, shoving. This is a family. It's much more sedate. They are just dunking in the water, enjoying it, cooling down. Speaking of elephant bulls, there might be one approaching right now. I don't know if that is a bull. I mean, it's almost certainly a bull because it's alone. It doesn't look particularly big, but at that age that this bull is, probably in its mid-20s, it's the age when they start pushing each other around quite a lot. So you might see, if a lot of other bulls arrive, you might see the behavior of this family changing from this sort of mothers giving the youngsters freedom to play. You might see, if bulls arrive, the mothers will start gathering the youngsters up to be closer to them and safer, rather than letting them be on the outskirts like that. It's so nice just to watch and enjoy the scene. Max, my favorite wild animal, is definitely 100% a leopard. Leopards are the epitome for me of feline grace and power, and the way they can be so stealthy but also so aggressive when they're protecting their youngsters or their territory, how they hunt, the way they feel. I've been lucky. I've never touched an elephant, but I've been so lucky to be able to touch a leopard when they were doing some research on one, removing its collar. And they're very soft and fluffy. And so, yeah, leopards are my favorite. I absolutely love them. I did work for a time in the Sabi sands, not so far from Djuma. So I got to experience lots of leopards then. And also my time at Ngala was phenomenally full of leopards as well. So I've been very fortunate to spend time with them. But recently, I've been starting to look at buffaloes with a new light. Buffaloes are super cool, especially when you get to watch them at the water holes and the interactions that they have and how tough they are. They might be second for me. Of course, watching tiny elephants like this is also super cool. Look at that thing. It's so cute. Jerome, I don't think that they are good swimmers, if I'm honest. I think they can swim, and they will swim if they really desperately need to, but there's not many water holes or rivers in most of the game reserves that we will visit that an elephant would need to swim. Most of them could reach with their trunk above the water and be able to, like this one here, you see it's walking across the water. It's not deep enough for it to need to swim. However, I think, Seb, you were telling me in Gabon sometimes elephants go into the ocean, right? Look at that. So Seb is saying here, some of the rivers and the ocean in Gabon, elephants will go into the water deep enough that they can actually swim. And I'm sure they do like a doggy paddle type of stroke. I think I've even read somewhere that they've been found on some islands just off the coasts of places as well, where they would have had to swim to get there. Maybe just going there just to see and then come back. But this is quite deep. I mean, look at this elephant's walking, and it's basically just its back sticking out. But Jerome, no, I don't think they're like great swimmers. They won't be winning any awards for grace, I think. Graceful swimming. Let's look at the two elephant cows just quietly watching over. In fact, I don't think that one on the right is a cow. That looks like a bull. That's definitely a bull. Young, strong-looking bull. And there's a cow just behind it. So, but he's behaving himself. I wonder, so we can't always hear everything that elephants are communicating, but I think it's quite often that they're using this infrasound, which is very, very low frequency rumbles that we can't necessarily hear, and they communicate all the time. So maybe this matriarch, the large elephant female that's watching over this lot swimming, would have given that one a little bit of a warning to say, okay, you can join us, but behave yourself. Because she's got tusks, and she's a big female, and she will definitely not hesitate to defend her youngsters and her family if she feels like they're being threatened. Look at that little baby having to basically keep its trunk up the whole time. It's a bit too small to even look out the water, really. It almost looks like it's trying to suckle or climbing onto its mother's back. That is so sweet. It's only really this time of year that you'll see the elephants doing this a lot, when it's so hot like this. In the winter we see them doing it sometimes if it's very dry and there's a little bit of a warm spell, but it's generally too cold for them to really swim too much. Anushka, I'm certain that they do. Elephants, as far as I'm aware, don't have a nictating membrane. Nictating? I think it's nictating. They don't have a membrane like crocodiles and hippos do, which covers their eyes and keeps them protected when they're underwater. They've got long eyelashes and strong eyelids to protect them from branches, but underwater they probably do close their eyes. But to be honest, it's something I've never been able to see. I mean, I can't see under this water, so I'd assume that they do close it because it's dirty and their eyes are sensitive, just like ours are. You see them often closing their eyes when there's a bright sunlight, or if there's wind or dust, they rub their eyes with their trunks. So one would assume that they need to protect their eyes quite a lot. So this muddy, dirty water is probably not great for them, I'm sure. Let's have a look. It's blinking. Its eyes are open right now. Oh, now it's turned so the shadow we can't really see. I'm certain that they do close their eyes underwater. There's that larger bull, just having fun, bringing back its youth, playing with the youngsters. And now what you're seeing here, we've often discussed it, and even Trishala was discussing it before, playful behavior. Is it necessary? Are they really being playful, or is there a reason for this? And this is certainly playful behavior, what you're seeing now. There's a lot of interaction, a lot of pushing and shoving, but none of this is aggressive. This is not any way to show dominance. This is purely socializing. Socializing, and then often you'll see one elephant bull on its own rolling in the mud in the water. That is just fun. It's just nice. I believe that elephants have the cognitive capacity, the brain function, the higher brain function, to be able to enjoy doing something for the simple pleasure of enjoying it. And there they head off. The matriarch, who did not go and swim, she was very composed, decided to start leading some of the herd off whilst the younger males most likely finish their play. But this small one here is being left behind. I'm sure it's going to turn around soon and realize that its family has moved off. There's a rumbling that I can hear. Almost too quiet for us to hear, but a little bit of a rumble, deep. They call it sometimes the belly rumble, although it's not produced from the belly. And now all the elephants are moving off. So she was just telling them what's about to happen and what they're doing, giving instruction. So I'm sure that we'll see in the next few minutes all these elephants start to leave the waterhole, except for maybe those two bulls that came a bit later. Look at that sharp tusk. Just be careful not to hurt themselves and each other. We saw it this morning. 2 elephant bulls play fighting, and then one of them got a bit rough, and then the other did not want to play anymore. Just kept running away. Mrs. S's 4th graders. You guys have asked a very interesting question. In this area, Mrs. S's 4th graders, they do not have predators. Elephants are far too large and powerful for most of the carnivores here, like hyenas, leopards, lions. But in some parts of Africa, I think it's in Botswana around Savuti, there is a pride of lions, a very large pride of lions, which has become known as specialist elephant hunters. Now, they don't hunt elephants all year round, but when the droughts arrive and there are all the other herbivores like impala leave the area, elephants still pass through this area, and the lions have learnt to catch them. Now, they don't usually go for the largest, strongest elephants. Young single elephants, they'll often try and separate, or young elephants, they'll separate from the herd, and then through sheer weight of numbers and by exhausting the elephant, they'll cause it to fall down, and then they can try and kill it. But it's not usual behavior at all. It's really unusual behavior. So no, these elephants that are here are quite safe from the predators. That would be amazing to see, though. The coordination that must take, although it would be really horrific and difficult to watch, I think, to watch, lions catching and trying to kill an elephant. It would still be like amazing to watch the teamwork of those lions. There goes a whole bunch of the younger males that haven't yet left the herd, leaving just the older bulls to enjoy the solitude of this waterhole, just the gentlemen.
Welcome to andBeyond Ngala. So I've just found 2 leopard tortoises that are following each other around on the road. One very large one in front and then a younger one at the back, or a smaller one. And I'm wondering if the one at the back isn't maybe trying to mate with the larger one. It is a bit of a weird size difference. Let's see if I can move you a little bit forward. But it's actually quite unusual to see such a small one.
Tessa and her tortoises. Sorry about that, guys. But we're still here with these lions. They seem to be behaving rather oddly. I told you before, lots of vocalization. There are at least 12 individuals, but they're so scattered all over the place that I can't tell if somebody's missing. Maybe that's why they're calling. It's died down a little bit now. Now they're just moving from shade to shade. Yeah, compare that to what we had previously, where there was a whole lot of vocalizations. We're going to stick with them for a little while longer.
As you can see, just the one elephant left, and he is making the most of it. Big rolling and splashing, and this is purely just for the fun of the game. There's no way that it needs to do this. I guess the floor of this waterhole might be full of mud, so maybe it's a type of exfoliation, but it doesn't look particularly useful. It just took that moment to just really let it loose, and now it's slowly following the other elephant bull that left the waterhole. The geese wisely kept their distance there, but I'm sure they'll come and swim through where the elephants were, because often after the elephants have been in the water, they disturb all sorts of insects and small vertebrates like frogs that the geese can then snap up. So you might find the geese swimming through there soon. Haven't seen the spotted hyena come back yet. It was well and truly chased off by the elephant bull. But maybe more animals will come down now. Maybe there was a bit too much elephant activity for some other animals, but you never know. Buffaloes seem to be frequenting Pride lands a lot since the summer began, since our waterholes filled up a little bit. Lots of elephants. More elephants will probably come down. I'm sure there'll be monkeys and baboons that arrive at the waterhole, as they normally do in the evening. Always plenty of bird life as well, from the southern-masked weavers and the red-billed buffalo weavers to the Diederik's cuckoos. They have made this dam home as well. Bye-bye, elephant. We'll see you at Ndlovu Dam later today. They seem to be bouncing between the two dams frequently. As you can hear, there's a very soft whistling sound coming from the left. Stopped now, but there's a couple of helmeted guinea fowl have also come down to the water's edge, just making a very soft no need to rush. But elephants can communicate over huge distances, so it doesn't have to worry that it's going to lose the herd. It's also got an incredible sense of smell, so it'll be able to smell the scent of wherever those elephants went. Really, really wonderful. And right now we're sitting, so there's no animals left. I'm just sitting watching these beautiful big clouds developing all around us. And I don't know if Seb will be able to get those clouds there, but really, really nice, clear blue sky. And then as we move across, and I'm sorry, Seb, I'm making you work, but as you move across there, you can see there's a big cumulonimbus cloud just starting to develop there. That is a mass of warm air that's rising up and then cooling down rapidly, and that is the kind of cloud that will drop rain very quickly on an area. Now, unfortunately, the wind is blowing in the wrong direction for that to reach us, but over the next few days, as this humidity continues to be high, hopefully that's going to drop us a lot of life-bringing rain onto the area.
Welcome back to andBeyond Ngala, everybody. We seem to have some gremlins here today. But we are sitting with a nice little herd of impala and some zebras. And this herd of impala has got so many lambs. I feel like the herd has almost doubled in size in the last week. And that's really, really good to see, because impalas are one of the most fed on of the herbivores. So for them, they really do need to make sure that they keep their numbers up. So there were actually some wildebeest in the back as well. I think they've moved into the thicket. But this is a nice big clearing, and the weather's actually starting to clear up again. There's some sunny skies. And so I think they're all just enjoying these open areas in and out of the shade, nice and safe, because they can see and hear things coming. But there are a lot of little lambs in this herd, and they're actually in a bit of a nursery at the moment. You can see quite a few of them grouped together around one or two of the adult females. And this is something that they use so that the moms can feed without having to worry about the lambs. So So the lambs will stay together, and I think for them as well, it's probably incredibly hot today, so it's important for them to also stay in the shade a bit. There was actually one suckling just now drinking on its mum's milk. And I think this is my favorite season because of all of the babies. Anushka, impalas are actually one of the most diverse animals in terms of the vegetation that they go for. It's referred to commonly as like a split lip. And so what that actually means is they don't actually have a split lip, but they eat both grasses and leaves, so they browse and they graze. And you can find them pretty much in any habitat in South Africa. They do tend to like these open areas, so maybe, kind of grasslands and woodland, so that they can get a bit of the kind of trees that are around as well as the grasses. The area that we're in now is actually a woodland, so it's got some trees, but it's also got some grass. And I think this would be the most ideal for them. But they really can eat just about anything, which is really lovely because they need to be able to feed themselves year-round, no matter what season it is. In winter, there's a lot less food, and so they have a massive advantage over some of the other herbivores that say only eat grass or only eat leaves. For them, that would be a very big problem if those resources start to dry up or die out in the winter. So it almost looks like the whole herd has decided, all right, it's time to move. So they're all walking over. And I didn't hear any obvious communication, so it's more just that herd instinct of one decided to move, and so the rest think, okay, we've got to stick together. We're going to move over as well. But it's also incredible to see how much the lambs have grown in the last week, because they were literally only born within the last week or two. And they were so tiny when they were born. They were really growing so fast, and that's also really important and helps a lot as well that the lambs can also eat leaves and grasses, because they'll grow a lot quicker, which increases their survival rate. You can imagine that a young impala lamb is the perfect meal for pretty much any predator, whether it's maybe even a martial eagle taking a very young impala, or a python, or a leopard, or a wild dog, or a lion. They really are the perfect size, and because they are young, they're inexperienced, so they're more of an easy target. But you can see how they group together really well. So they're following mums, they're in nursery groups, and they're already learning so fast. They would have learned so much in the last 2 weeks, just from new senses. Brian, the impala lambing season is usually they only actually give birth within about a week or two of each other, so it happens once a year. They have the rut in May, which is when the males fight and start mating with the females. They try and mate with all of them within 3 days within the same herd. And then usually all of them will give birth within a month or two of each other in November. So that breeding season and lambing season usually only lasts the month of November, when they are actually giving birth. You will occasionally find maybe one that might be out of sync with the rest of the harem or the herd, and she might give birth a little bit later or a little bit earlier, but usually those are the lambs that wouldn't survive, as well as all of those born in the bulk lambing season within the first week or two of November. And the reason for that is, one on its own is a much easier target within the herd than every single female having a baby at the same time. All of those lambs are then an equal target, and so it just reduces the chances of them getting eaten. But in total, they're pregnant for around 6 months, so the rut starts in May, and then they usually give birth in November. So that lambing season is in spring, just before summer, when there's been some rain and there's enough resources to feed the mom who's producing milk, but also to help the babies grow. Just imagine how these young impalas have learnt already in a week or two of being here, from the moms, from the rest of the herd, but also from their senses. They're smelling new things probably every day. They're hearing new things, experiencing new things. So they learn incredibly quickly for youngsters. So that's also why you would want to keep them in one of these little nurseries like they have, where quite a few of the youngsters or the lambs might stay together with one or two adults, because they're all experiencing it together and they're learning from the rest of the herd. So it actually looks like they're moving over more into the shade. They were mostly in the sun on the right-hand side. Now they're moving over into the shade because the sun has come out consistently from behind the clouds. And we can actually see some blue sky. So I think they're trying to cool off a bit and focus on the grass and the herbs that are in the shady patches. You can see the little nursery coming over there. A lot of little lambs together with 3 or 4 females. Mrs. S's 4th graders, no. So you can actually find impalas outside of South Africa as well. They are predominantly in South Africa, but you can actually also find them in other places. So it would depend wherever there is the correct bushveld woodland for them. So you find them in Mopani woodlands, bushveld, lowveld, and so, you know, you might find these in, say, areas adjoining South Africa as well. It's not only South Africa. They are quite a successful antelope, so they would be found in other places as well. Not as far north as Kenya and East Africa. They'll have other species there like topi. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move on from here, leave these impalas to feed, and see if we can maybe find some of the other herbivores.
Well, while Tess looks at impalas, we are watching 2 cuckoos. Now, Mike this morning got himself a great spotted cuckoo, and he was very excited about it, and they're really cool birds to see. And we've actually got a pair of them. So there's one here that's bouncing around in the grass. The other one was on a tree and also flew down, so I don't know where it is exactly. The grass is obviously quite long. It's a little tricky to see them, but it's always special to see one, let alone 2. There we go. It's flown up into a branch in the background there, Marcel. Do you see it? That's about 2 o'clock on our... There we go. So there is the other member of the pair. And these 2 will have obviously paired off in hopes to start breeding, and then from there are going to parasitize some poor, helpless Burchell's starling. And this is what these guys mostly use as brood parasites. So they'll find Burchell's starling nests and basically lay their eggs there in order for the Burchell starlings to look after them. Now, the problem with that is that a Burchell starling is about half the size of what these guys are. So the poor adult Burchell starlings have a really tough time in order to keep these guys going. Now, I'm going to just try to go forward a little bit so we can get a bit of a better view because it's behind a branch. They seem to be fairly chilled. When I came up the road, they were both on the road, and then they flew up right next to us and stayed for a long time. So I think if we just go slowly, we should be good to be able to get a fairly decent... Nope, they've both flown now, unfortunately. One's landed just up in front there. Also, what's happening is there's a big storm about to arrive, so I'm kind of half keeping my eye out behind me because we don't have our roof on and there's a massive black cloud. And I just heard from the guys on the radio that's to the south of us that they said they're getting absolutely hammered by rain. So we need to just be a little bit careful. Let's hope this one stays. Can you see it there, Marcel? I don't know if I can now. I've turned off the engine, which is not ideal. So hopefully it will just stay on the branch. You can just see it behind there. But they've got the most beautiful markings with these spots on the wings, hence the name Great Spotted Cuckoo. And then they've got this sort of lemony kind of buff-coloured throat area with a grey crown. You can actually hear this one's calling. I wonder if the other one will respond. It should. Just worried if I went a little bit forward that it was going to fly away. And fortunately, most cuckoos are fairly shy birds. They don't really like to be too close to vehicles and often just fly. Let me try to see if I can get us one last view here. It hasn't flown, so maybe... No, there it goes. I thought it might. Anyway, that was really cool to see. But like I say, we've got big rainstorm coming from behind us, so I'm trying to actually dodge the rain and try and figure out a way that we don't get hit by it. So we're going to try and see if we can duck into Torchwood and see if the rain will bypass us to our west.
I couldn't agree more with Tristan. Seeing those cuckoos are really, really remarkable birds and also very cool sightings. We've just stumbled upon this very old tortoise. This is a Kalahari tent tortoise. And why I'm saying it looks old is from its very worn down carapace. That is the top section of the shell. And those little plates that actually cover the carapace, those are fairly worn down. You can see a very worn down appearance. The markings are almost non-existent on this individual. With age, obviously, they'll be worn down from the wear and tear of hot and cold and hot and cold. But such a tiny little tortoise. He's busy munching away on the nice green forbs. And that's typically what they would eat, is greenery, flowers, succulents. And what a striking difference in comparison to the one that we had a couple of weeks ago, that mating pair. You can see that shell was very prominent with its patterns, whereas in this one is very faded. So quickly that little individual moves. Lara, nice comment there. They can really leg it and give a high step. I think for such a small little animal, you would really think it would move slowly. That's about the only thing we can outrun out here. It's a tortoise. And even they, in their own respect, are fairly quick. So he lifts his little feet. Very unique walking pattern. Front left with back right. They are lifted simultaneously, and then front right with back left. You really need good coordination to be a tortoise, I think. So we are having a little trouble finding another colony of leafcutter bees. We know of a site out west, but it is very far for us to push out there. I thought we were going to get lucky fairly easily with the species, but they are posing to be a bit more of a challenge than I initially thought. But that's okay, because there's plenty more out here. It's a beautiful scene. Owen, can you give us a wide view of the landscape? We're crossing over the dunes. We are heading back east, so the light is just spectacular now on the vegetation and along with the mountains. So as the position of the sun changes, so do all of these colors. And really goes through a massive color scheme throughout the day. From early morning to late afternoon, it's just continuously changing. Northern black coran busy calling in the distance. But on that little insect search, we will go out to that far west set pan. And that colony, that loose colony, should still be there. So I'll definitely make it a part of a mission to head out there so we can enjoy the hustle and bustle of those individuals. It's almost very important sometimes to stop and take a deep breath like that, to absorb and soak it all in. Still on the tortoise. Lovely and green. So what we'll do is continue heading northeast, and we're just gonna drive really slowly. We might end up at a watering hole, take a little squiz around the watering hole and see what activity of animals might be around there.
Good luck, Kyle. Hope you find something interesting. As you can see, we're watching part of a storm. So that's one bank of cloud with some very heavy rain underneath it, which is not the one that we worried about. We were about to go into Torchwood, and it's this one to the left that is going to be the problem, because this is the one that is shifted a little bit. It was initially heading kind of westwards, but it's now changed and is heading more kind of north and east towards Torchwood itself. So I'm trying to kind of meander between them at this stage, and you can see how dark those clouds are that are full of rain. And it actually gets darker and more rain falling kind of towards the east. So we're not going to tempt fate and get caught in that. Like I say, we don't have our roof on at the moment, so we're just going to try and kind of bumble back towards Djuma and kind of split these two storms in half. And hopefully we should be right. It looks like we're able to dodge it. It's something that you learn very quickly that you can do in East Africa. Now here in South Africa, generally we don't have the space to be able to outrun storms, but in East Africa you get very localized cells of rain, and you can often drive around them or see them coming and kind of shoot a little bit further forward or back, and can get missed by the rain if you're lucky. And so that's kind of the plan with this little front. But it's come out of nowhere because it was overcast and rainy, and then all of a sudden it kind of got clear and it was beautiful blue sky. And now it's gotten really hot again, and all of a sudden these clouds have started to roll in with a bit of a wind. So I expect that we are going to get some fairly decent rain this evening or this afternoon, which, well, is always welcome. Rain is always a good thing. It makes game viewing a little bit tricky, but good for the environment. All right, let's carry on and see what else we can get. Always funny when these storms come, you can feel the wind starts to pick up just before they arrive, and then it goes dead quiet. The wind just drops all of a sudden, and then the rain hits. So at the moment we've still got a bit of a breeze blowing, which means that the rain's not quite on us just yet. And I think if we play our cards right and we slowly kind of head towards central Djuma, we should be okay. And well, there's always lots to find in central Djuma. Kalumba's often around. It's Tundi sometimes, so worthwhile exploring. Interestingly enough, last week, Friday, I had Kalamba crossing into Little Gowrie. Now, the last time I saw Kalamba cross into Little Gowrie was in 2018. What she was doing down there, I'm not quite sure. She was calling, so maybe she was following Mulawati southwards, trying to pick up a mate. It's possible. We know that when female leopards come into estrus, they will often go way out of their territories in order to copulate and to find a suitable mate to partner with. So I wonder if maybe that's why she was all the way down there. How long she was in Little Gowrie for, I don't know. I don't know if there's been a sighting of her since. I expect that during the course of this weekend there must have been something, or maybe there wasn't, and she's still kind of hanging around that area. But I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen with Kalamba, because I still am of a firm belief that she's going to den in one of her old den sites. And boy, you're asking why leopards are antisocial? Well, it's not that they're antisocial, it's just the niche that they've created for themselves means that they fulfill a role where solitary behavior suits them better. They're an ambush predator. The coat is designed to camouflage them in dense, thick, shady environments. And so, if they were to be in big groups, that style of hunting wouldn't really work. Also, they would then be in direct competition with something like lions, and lions being larger means they would outcompete them. So often what happens out here is that animals fit into a certain role or a certain niche, and so for this animal to fit that niche and to be able to not be in competition with lions and cheetah so much, they needed to adapt and become something different, which meant they needed to be solitary, and they needed to occupy a space that the others two didn't occupy nearly as much. And that means that they've been kind of not constricted, because you do find them pretty much anywhere, but they utilize mostly denser areas, and they find that their hunting strategies are far better if they're on their own. You often see it with females when they have quite old cubs, so like in Sabi's case now, where she's got these much older cubs. They often ruin the hunt because they're boisterous and they're big and they bound around and they don't have the experience, and so they just seem to operate much better by being stealthy ambush predators that can get in somewhere, sit tight, and then wait to pounce or whatever comes. So it's not that they're antisocial. In fact, we've seen male leopards socialize with their offspring. We've seen multiple generations socialize. It's just that their life is suited to rather being on their own. Thought I maybe saw a track for a female leopard there. I was about to get very excited, but it was an old hyena track that had been driven over, so not exactly what we're looking for. But this area here, if we get female tracks, could be either Kalamba or Thandi, both of them in this area. And like I was saying, I'm going to be intrigued to see where Kalamba dens, because I have a sneaky suspicion she's going to use one of her den sites that she was kept in as a cub. Particularly that Mulawati stretch, there was a number of dens that were there that she was put in, and we've seen her over the past few months making a lot of noise around those particular den sites, and so it kind of tends to suggest that that's where she feels like it's going to be a core of her territory, and that's why she's making so much noise and scent marking and doing her thing. And funny enough, since she's been doing that, the sightings of Thandi have been very few and far between on that northern stretch of the Mulawati. Most of what she's been doing is to the kind of south and east of the Mulawati, with Kalamba in it and Shidulu to the west and Sabui to the south. So I reckon that's where she's planning, is somewhere there. If not there, the northern side of Galago Pan. She wasn't kept there that much by Thandi, but she did go there a lot as a sub-adult before she left mom. So she could go there. Of course, the other den site that she might utilize is the one that Thandi always uses, which is right in front of us here. And this is the den site where we found Kalamba for the first time, the next set of cubs, and the current cub now that she's got, all were in this den site just on my left-hand side. So, she could be anywhere in this section, but it'll be really interesting to see. It's quite a common thing to see with leopards, that they utilize a den site that they were put in themselves as a cub, which is incredible to me, because at that age, imagine being a sort of 3-4 week old cub and remembering that that was a safe haven and a place to go and kind of have your cubs. Now, we're going to have to just reposition ourselves, and because there's a naughty animal that wants to photobomb today. So we'll just turn around here and head in another direction. Even though they're not allowed to be on camera, they sometimes photobomb the camera. It happens every now and then. Mrs. S's fourth graders, depends on the animal. Cats don't really, so leopards and lions and cheetah are not really happy about rain, especially if it's hard rain. Then they like to just get in under a tree and just sit there, and they look very miserable. But you'll find, like Marcel's just said, springboks, elephant, buffalo, hippos, rhinos, all these bigger animals that wallow a lot, they like rain, and they often will kind of sit out in the rain. Given that it's not too hard, if it's hailing or something like that, even they don't like it. And if there's too much lightning, then they're not that happy. But if it's just nice rain, then you'll find those animals really enjoy it, and they spend a lot of time in it. The other thing that likes rain is tortoises. often when it's been raining, you'll find them coming out and finding water and food. Frogs like rain. What else? Snails, giant African land snail, they like rain. There's a number of things that are quite interested in rain. Actually, talking of frogs, there's a little foam nest over here, which we're going to try and see if we can get on camera, because the rain looks like it's skirted past us, so we don't have to worry about that too much. Fortunately for these little tadpoles, parent frogs didn't do the best jobs in terms of planning. Where the little foam nest is above a dry patch of ground. But it should be enough, or close enough to water, that the tadpoles would be able to actually wiggle and scram their way to water, given there's no predator around to catch them. Now, a lot of you will know exactly the process behind all of this, but essentially what happens is that a female foam nest tree frog, she will go and she'll start to call, and that will attract the attention of multiple male frogs. And these male frogs will also start calling, and they'll all come together, often on a branch like this. And as they all come together, the female will start to secrete a substance that she then kicks her legs with, and that kicking of the legs causes that secretion to foam, creating this moist environment. As she's foaming, she's going to be depositing eggs, which are then going to be fertilized by those male frogs' sperm. And what happens then is these little tadpoles live in this moist environment, they eventually hatch, and they grow a little bit. And once they've grown enough, they wiggle their way out, dropping from the bottom into the water below, and therefore slightly more developed than other tadpoles that could be around, and maybe more able to evade predation. So that's the kind of way that it works. Sometimes if you catch it in time, you can actually see the little ones wiggling and dropping out of the nest. It's not that common to see, because obviously we don't spend all day with these little foam balls, but it does happen, and it's really interesting to watch how they kind of wiggle their way out. Now, the thing is with that is that obviously you'd think that that would be preyed upon, but funnily enough, generally this foam isn't disturbed at all. The only time I've seen it disturbed is by leopards being curious, particularly young leopards. So I've seen Osana, Shongile, and many others that are sort of under 2 years old, often poke their nose in there and kind of disturb that little foam ball. But it's not so much for food, it's I think more curiosity, and once they poke their nose in, I don't think they really like the texture of it, and they generally leave it alone.
One big elephant bull at
Trishala is shouting at me as well over the game drive radio. Then the other thing that eats them sometimes is if these foam nests are created too low to the surface of the water, you'll often find terrapins coming up, and they'll lift their necks and they'll actually just chomp at the bottom of the foam, and it's pretty much trying to get to those eggs and tadpoles. Terrapins are creatures that eat all kinds of random stuff, from worms to tadpoles to bits of fish to organic matter. They're pretty much the kind of hyenas of the underwater world in many respects. They chomp around on all kinds of things, and even carcasses to a degree. So I've seen them doing it, but other than that, it seems as though this keeps away most predators and then really allows for development of those tadpoles, which is pretty amazing if you think about it. Cool. All right, well, let's carry on. I was hoping with the storm brewing, if we sat here a little bit, maybe we would have heard the foam nest tree frogs calling, because often if there's rain about to hit, then they're very vocal. They make a lot of noise, and the reason for that is they want to attract the attention of the mates before little puddles fill up, and so they know if it's going to rain, then those puddles will fill, and they can do the little ball on top, and those little ones can drop into the puddles. Marcel, I think we dodged the rain, buddy. I think we found the perfect little gap here, which is wonderful. Now we just need an animal to come out and grace us with its presence. What would you like to see, Marcel? An aardvark. Jeez. Yeah, you'd think you'd ask for something attainable, but no, an aardvark. A porcupine. That would also be quite nice. I wouldn't mind seeing a porcupine, but I think we're a little early for both of those species. So we'll try and find something that's a little bit more attainable for now, and hope that those other two come out a bit later.
So I'm sitting with a beautiful lilac-breasted roller at andBeyond in Ngala that's just flown away. There you can see it flying away with those stunning blue colors. And this is actually the most photographed bird in southern Africa. So it was perched very beautifully. We've got this golden light at the moment, which is absolutely stunning. You can actually see the storm clouds ahead of me and that golden light coming in through the right-hand side. And it's a perfect time of day for us to really see the bright colors in all of the birds in particular. It would be the same with a leopard's coat or a wild dog's coat at the moment. It would really be shining with those golds and whites on a wild dog. But a lilac-breasted roller is absolutely stunning in this light. My favorite is the purple roller, not the lilac-breasted roller, but it's still absolutely stunning with all those different colors on it, like a rainbow. So what we're actually doing is, on this road, I'm heading down this way for a reason. And the reason I'm going down there is because there were tracks of the lions there this morning, and there's actually some vulture activity that I spoke about earlier, so I want to go and have a look. Maybe those lions are starting to get a bit more active as it's getting cooler. And with the vultures, I'm thinking they might have had something to eat. So maybe they would be needing some water around about now. And there are a few little mud wallows around. So those would be the closest water holes for them. And so I'm thinking if we carry on down this way, maybe we might see those lions coming for a drink of water. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to head down the road. Let's see if we get lucky. You never know, it is stunning light at the moment, so whatever we do find would be absolutely beautiful at the moment. And with the storm clouds still coming in, the rest of the sky is blue, but there's massive storm clouds. You can actually see, if you kind of have a look over to the left, you can see those really big storm clouds building. So our weather here at andBeyond in Ngala usually comes from the southwest, and this is exactly the direction we're going in. And actually, if you have a look at the cloud in front of us, you can actually see the wall of rain coming down from left to right, just to the left of that dead tree. So we know that there's weather coming towards us, which is a good thing. We really do need it. And it also means that the predators are going to be a little bit more active now. Just before the storm hits, you'll see predators becoming a lot more active. So that is what I'm really, really hoping for. But this particular area of andBeyond in Ngala is one of my favorite areas on the reserve. As we get over this ridge, it's just this huge open clearing. You can see all the way to the Drakensberg Mountains, which are, you know, probably 50 kilometers away. It's unbelievable. So I've actually seen quite a lot of raptors in this area as well. Boy Blue, yes, this is absolutely beautiful scenery. I could not agree with you more. Actually, what I'm going to do, just past this tree, I'm going to stop for you, and you can actually have a look out Boy Blue to the left. There's just a stunning, stunning, stunning open area. And you can see incredible. Oh, can you hear all the bee eaters? Oh my goodness. So you can really see very far into the distance over the horizon there. And that is actually south for us. And so that is going all the way right down to the boundary of andBeyond in Ngala in our southern side. But this area is particularly good because of that, because it is so open. You can really see for quite far. So herds of elephants or buffaloes or even the white lions really stand out in an area like this. So it's one of the best places to come and have a look. And it also just offers you something different in terms of scenery, because I think a lot of places in the low veldt, you know, there's mountains and koppies, those granite outcrops. And to have such a beautiful, vast, open area is quite unique, especially when there's this huge storm cloud coming in. It really is stunning. And what I actually love about this, I don't know if anyone else feels the same way, maybe some of our viewers do, but this for me is the best light for photography. We've got a bit of golden light coming in, which you can see on the greenery. So any animal that you get in that golden light is absolutely perfect with those storm clouds in the background, because it gives such a good contrast. So you've got that very dramatic sky, but still that beautiful, soft, golden light on the animal itself. The sun's actually just starting to go behind a cloud now, so that light is fading. But you can actually see this bank of rain is actually moving towards us. So if you look straight down the road as we're about to focus on it, in the distance, that diagonal rain that's coming down is actually moving straight towards us. I could not agree with all of the viewers more. This is honestly one of my favorite areas of the whole of andBeyond Ngala. It is absolutely stunning. And especially in a time like this where you're seeing an entire storm coming towards us. And it's actually quite characteristic at the moment, the way I'm looking at it. There's so many different shades of green. There's dead trees, there's very lush trees. That dramatic sky in the background, and the grass in particular is very green here, but just above the soil. So there's that very bright green close to the floor, and then it fades to that yellowish grey higher up. And it really is so breathtaking to look at. It's something that you don't really appreciate as much, I think, you know, when you start getting caught up with all of the big mammal sightings. And when you actually just get a chance to sit and listen to the birds and actually look at all the different colors around you and the scenery, it makes a huge difference to what you take in from nature. You can hear the insects now as well. Quite a few birds calling. Jerome, absolutely. I also want to smell the rain. It's one of the best smells in the world to me. That very fresh smell. You can really smell the earth after the rain, and even just before the rain here, you can almost smell it coming. And it's such an exciting smell. I think because we're so used to the droughts here and the harsh conditions, you know, whenever you live in a natural area like this, any rain is just so exciting. And I don't know if you knew this, but it's actually not the rain that you're smelling, Jerome. It's actually, you're smelling the earth and the soils. But because of the water and the moisture in the air, it accentuates. It actually accentuates all of the smells. And that's actually what the smell of rain is to us, is actually just the soil. But have a listen to all of the birds around us and the storm coming in. You might even hear some thunder. So I'm going to continue down the road towards that storm and just enjoy watching it coming in, and hopefully I can find you some of the cats to see in this stunning light.
Well, while Tessa looks for cats, we found a cute new addition to the wildebeest herd on quarantine. It's that time of the year where little baby wildebeest start popping out again, and I don't know if this little one has been put on camera before. I certainly haven't seen it myself over the course of the last few days, so I would expect that this is a new addition that was maybe birthed either last night or maybe during the day today. It still seems a little wobbly on its feet, and so we need to be very, very kind of aware of what's going on over the next few days, because there's lots of heavily pregnant wildebeest, and once one goes, you often find the others start to follow, and you'll start to get lots of little babies born. And if we're very lucky and we spend time with them, we might even get a birthing live, which is always a very, very special thing. Watching a wildebeest give birth, if it's a first time mom, can be quite a traumatic thing. It can take very, very long. We once had one that went over 3 hours for her to give birth. Or if it's a female that's a lot more experienced, sometimes those ones will pop out little babies within about 15 minutes. So it really just depends on the individual. But lots of heavily pregnant cows. And I was just checking now, looking at all of them, because when they're about to give birth, what you'll see is a little set of hooves sticking out underneath the tail, and the tail is slightly raised, and you get these two kind of like pinky colored hooves that just poke out, and then from there they come. And this cow that's right at the back of this wildebeest herd on the left-hand side, she's any day now, she's going to give birth. Her tummy is really hanging low. You can see she's very, very round. So within the next couple of days, we need to just keep watching. And like I say, it really is a special thing to be able to see a wildebeest give birth. What you'll also see that they're doing is that they are scent marking at the moment. They're using a gland that sits under their eye called preorbital gland, and this is a way that they mark territory. You'll often see them doing it. And this wildebeest actually caught me by surprise, because I was trying to move off because we had impalas alarm calling to our west, and they're not for Tingana. It seems like it's for another leopard not too far from him. So I was trying to get into that area to try and see if we can find what it is that's causing the disturbance, but we couldn't not stop for a little baby wildy that's new to our herd. This little quarantine herd is something that we spend so much time with and see so often that it's always like an addition to the family when we see a new one on this little area. And of course, it's always a tough thing, because shame, these little ones are very susceptible to predation. There's a number of different things that you can imagine go after little baby wildebeest, like hyenas, leopards, lions, wild dogs. And so they're going to have to be a little bit careful over the coming days as they start to all have their little ones slowly but surely. Amazing, though. All right, let's go forward and see if we can get one little view of that little baby, see if it will allow us to see it. Their mom is laid down, and so I think the little baby lay down with mom. And because it's so new, it doesn't really know what this big noisy car is. And so it went trotting off. No, mom, don't stand up. I was hoping we could get through without disturbing them, but they've just stood up now. You can see how small it is, and you see how when it stands, its legs are wide apart. That's because it's still trying to figure out how to balance itself and get itself kind of sorted and able to move around. Now, like I say, we have seen them give birth live before, and personally have witnessed them giving birth, and it's a pretty quick process once they're out. Within about 5 minutes, they're wobbling onto their feet, and within about 15-20, they generally are running around pretty quickly and able to kind of keep up with the herd and mom, and able to kind of know what's going on. So I'd imagine this one, born maybe early today, has already found its feet. Kelly, most definitely, wildebeest are very, very defensive of their young. Unlike impala that typically bolt, and the little baby lambs have got to, that's quite cute with the impala lamb and the wildy lamb together. There's going to be a number of little impalas coming past. But unlike impalas that will run and hope that their little one gets away, wildebeest will actually protect their babies as well as themselves. And I've seen the most incredible encounters between wild dogs and wildebeest. I once had a pack of dogs attack a herd of wildebeest that had little babies, and they went after it and went after it and went after it, and eventually one of the dogs made a mistake and it got too close, and a wildebeest hit this dog and picked it up and threw it about 3 meters into the air, and the dog landed unceremoniously on its back, and the whole pack just ran away from there. So they are very much an animal that will protect from hyena, wild dog, but not so much lions. Lions, you'll find that they'll just try and run and generally try and kind of distract the lions from getting too close. But I'm not going to follow it too much further, because obviously it's moving away from us all the time, and you can see the herd wants to lie down, so I don't want to kind of disrupt them too much. I want them to be able to lie nicely out in the middle of quarantine, where predation is going to be a lot harder than if they were on the fringes. Also, we have some alarm calls to go and catch up on, so let's go do that and leave these guys to themselves. Epic, though. Really, really cool. Always nice to see new little additions to animals that we know so well. Like I say, we spend a lot of time out here, and this particular herd, we see it every morning, every afternoon, twice a day, well, twice a drive. And so, you get so used to seeing them. And it's nice when there's another little one that gets added to the bunch. All right, now we've got to make a bet as to which other leopard is around. I'm going to go for Tswalu. That's who I reckon is walking about. I'm going to try and see if we can find who it is. The impala are calling to the west of us, but quite far, so it sounds like power lines, impala plains, sandy patch area. So we're going to try and see if we get some luck on that side.
I have found this strange tomato-looking fruit plant. It really does. It looks like those long tomatoes. In South Africa, we call those jam tomatoes. Sometimes they're called Italian tomatoes. But I'm really not sure what this is. It looks very similar to a cadostrus species that I've seen before. Laloja. But the leaves are not right. I'm looking for broader leaves, and the leaves of these ones are kind of thin and skinny. I'm not sure about it at all. It's so bright red. So the cadostrus species that I was telling you about that looks similar but not as bulky, kind of looks more chili-like, but looks very similar, is also a climbing kind of herbaceous plant, which is just like this one. So maybe it's the same genus, definitely related somehow. I'm quite sure that Judy H will be able to help me.
Mike.
I don't think I will attempt to eat it, even though the cadostrus laloja is edible. I don't know if I'll try this one. Rule number 1 in the bush, don't eat something that you're not sure about. I can tell you it's the first time I've seen this. I'm right on the boundary, on the northern boundary of Djuma. Just come out of Buchshoek. That is great. Doesn't it really look like a tomato? Of course it does. I hope that you're all saying that at home. So there's two cadostrus species that are sometimes confused. There's also, apart from the cadostrus laloja, there's also cadostrus hirtella. I can't tell the difference. All I know is that both have these long red tomato / big chili pepper style fruits. Well, I wonder what it is. I look forward to any of your answers if you know. Look at how it stands out. So red. There we have the coming storm. Can you see that? Oh, it's so cool. Just lovely. All right, well, I'm going to move on now, back into Djuma, see what else we can find.
Well, Well, it sounded very interesting, a plant that you folks were looking at with Trishada. Very interesting sounding plant. We are just enjoying the beautiful view of these wattled starlings sitting in the canopy of this beautiful camelthorn, and they're all busy grooming themselves. This is typical of bird behavior late afternoon before you go back to a roosting spot. You want to rid yourself of any hitchhikers that you might have picked up through the day's activities. And what a better place to do it than sitting on top of a tree, enjoying the sunset. You can see how the beak is not only used for feeding, but it's also used as a versatile tool. Straightening and realigning all the feathers, picking up a bit of oil which would be found on the rump from an oil gland, running that through the feathers to ensure that those feathers are kept to a very high degree. Whoa! Wow, it was like a movie. Wow, fantastic. And they are in abundance at the moment in Tswalu. This is the first year I've seen so many wattled starlings, and that's a real treat. Owen is that the grass looks like it should be at Wimbledon, and I couldn't agree with him more. This dominant cover or ground cover of small tiny plants creates this beautiful unit.
So I have found a really beautiful journey of giraffes here at andBeyond Ngala in the clearing just over that hill. And it is so interesting to watch because I think there are 2 females here that are getting ready to mate or coming into estrus. So they're being kind of trailed. There's 2 males here. One is a lot younger and the other one's a lot bigger. There, coming up, you can see him trailing that female. That looks like the dominant male. He's quite large and dark. And he's trailing that female, and every chance he gets, he's coming and sniffing her like that. Can you see that he's dropping his head to sniff her? And he's testing where she is in her cycle. And I think that's why he's sticking with her, because she's coming into estrus. And there's another one, but there's a younger male that's been following her around. So they might be synchronizing when they're going to mate. And that's quite normal to try and have babies at the same time of year. Maybe these are 2 young females that have never had a calf before. They do look quite small. But look at that, he just keeps tailing her and sniffing her. And I think that's why he's also more protective. He's staying right next to her all the time. He hasn't let any of the other giraffes close to her. It's actually quite lovely to see the color difference between the 2 of them as well. His spots seem to be a lot bolder and more red, and hers are quite faded and small. So the sun has just started setting, so that golden light is now disappeared. But I love how these giraffes are standing out. I've always loved spending time with them. So I think I'm actually going to spend a few more minutes here and see what happens, because it's quite interesting having 2 females tailed at the same time.
It's a violet-backed starling. How beautiful. A male, of course, the female's being slightly more drab. Isn't that gorgeous? So happy to see them. So happy to put it on camera. The light is really starting to wane, so you can't actually see its spectacular colors, but it is a gorgeous, gorgeous bird. An intra-African migrant. So they migrate from the tropical parts of Africa. Oh, so gorgeous. I'm just absolutely chuffed that it didn't fly away. It's been a really nice day for birds today, this morning. The red-chested cuckoo was awesome. Today the violet-backed starling shall be the feather in the cap for the afternoon drive for us. You can see it's got the very typical starling shape. Kind of like a flat back. Long face ahead. But Trisha, you say this bird is a first for you. I'm so glad. I get so excited when it's a first bird for somebody. First anything really, but birds are like treasures, like just little jewels. You can go and find them and bury the treasure kind of thing. You don't know what you're going to find, what you might stumble upon today, and I'm so glad that you can add the violet-backed starling to your list. That was a wonderful amount of time spent with that starling. It wasn't a quick one. That's always nice. Yay. Very, very lovely. It's the storm, everyone. Giving us some really pretty colors. We really need some consistent rain. You know, rain that's falling for 48 hours. Really, really soak into the ground, percolate down to the water table. That's what we need. Not that we're doing too badly, but things are dry. It could definitely be wetter and more lush. We expect it, we just don't know when. So I'm going to pull out my spotlight a little early today, since it's starting to darken just a bit. And that's going to help me find creatures in the trees. By creatures in the trees, I mean the chameleons that I've been missing out on, as well as bush babies and snakes and all kinds of things, because they reflect. Anyway, off I go, like my electric vehicle. Anyway, off I go and look for these little things in the trees.
I lost them. Welcome back, everyone. We are at Phinda andBeyond, and we currently sitting with the two male lions, and have a look. Both of them are lying down flat, and they've got like quite black mane around their neck and quite gold around the face. Although we can't really see the face, we can just see the little bit of the face of the gold mane. And the were are patrolling their territory and they decided to rest around here, which means they've got very huge territory that they patrol. And as soon as it's get really late, then they'll start patrolling again. And Vodacom now. Do they still got you? Did they say lava? Oh wow. One just get up now. You see he's looking around. He's watching behind us. Probably you might have seen the tiny little movement at the back. Because he was, today it was a nice hot day, so he was lying down, as you see around where he is, just on the back where they are. It's quite thick. It's where they were early in the day. So now, because it's a lot cooler, they're out in the open to catch that nice breeze. And have a look at the size of their paws. They're enormous. So if you have a closer look, you'll see that there's no claws at all. So lions are the cats that do retract their claws. They want to keep those claws nice and sharp if they had to use them, mostly in their prey species. It seems like they're quite happy where they are. It's nice and cool. Unless if there's something present itself, then definitely they will go for it. Wow. So earlier on, before the storm came, it was quite windy as well. It did give us a hard time to try to track these animals, because if it's windy and the wind does blow our tracks away. And now, after the little bit ton of rain that we had, it's going to be very easy to see tracks, because we'll know exactly that the tracks that we found, they're nice and fresh, so much easier to follow. But we are so lucky to find them out in the open here. They are fast asleep. So judging by the size of their mane, and these lions are about 6.5 to 7 years.
Well, while two male lions are sleeping, you can see Tsingana has woken up a little bit, so we didn't find that other leopard. We found hyenas, so maybe it was hyenas chasing impalas, maybe there's another leopard. We checked around and followed the hyena for a little bit and tried to kind of negotiate a very dense, very thick area, but it was near impossible where that hyena ended up going. And so we thought we'd just come sit here, and if we hear the alarm calls again, because it's not far from here, then we'll quickly kind of shoot off to where those alarm calls are coming from and see if maybe we get a little bit more luck. So that's the kind of plan at this stage. Until then, though, we're going to have to just be patient and see what comes our way. I expect that if it was something really to worry about and it was really a kind of very serious alarm call, we would have seen a different behavior from Tingana. We would have seen Tingana starting to head in that direction. Often if a leopard picks up on another leopard, being in the area and there's alarm calls and things like that, they'll often kind of head in that direction in order to try and go and investigate, especially a male leopard, because either it's an intruder or it could be a potential mating right. And so you often find that these guys then like to kind of just go and double check what's happening around them. So I don't think it's anything to worry about. Maybe, like I said, it was just hyenas that were being a little bit naughty, and they were chasing the local kind of impala population. It does happen from time to time, and so maybe that's kind of what's gone on with this lot. But we're in the right place. Like I say, if anything does happen, we certainly will be able to hear it from here. Random stuff? No, actually the opposite way around. Lions are rarer than leopards here. Just for now, it's not always the case, but we're in a situation at the moment where we have a bit of a kind of weird dynamic with our lions. Unfortunately, there's been a kind of male takeover which has led to our prides being kind of moved a little bit. So when the evokers came in, for some reason they ended up heading more to the sort of south, and they've dragged the Nkuhumas with them south and westwards. And what that meant is that the Talamatis, who are still sitting a little bit north of us, haven't really ventured too deep onto Djuma too regularly. And so we've got this kind of void at the moment of lions where we're seeing lions passing through but not spending huge amounts of time, whereas leopards are a pretty constant feature of the Djuma landscape. So we're lucky in that regard. It's an animal that most people don't get to see as much as we do. All right, well, we'll sit with Tingana. He's sleeping for now. Hopefully he's eventually going to wake up and we'll see him going on a bit of a walk.
It is... I'm not sure how much of that you caught, but it is a western yellow-bellied sand snake. And though it may look a little bit scary, it definitely is not. It's a little bit mildly venomous, but not any issue for humans. They're very, very thin and slender. Small chap, really. They get about 1 meter long. It's the third one I've seen on Djuma in the space of a year. So that's good. Often when we get asked, why don't we see snakes? Here you go. We've once had to remove one from the tech box near one of the masts. That was the most recent encounter with the snake. And they move really, really, really quickly. Very, very quickly. But the fact that they're not harmful to us helps with the whole fast-moving reptile experience. Really nice to see, I think. So you see, if you also want to identify, it's got big round eyes, kind of like a boomslang, and elongated snout that looks a little triangular, and quite a distinct cream and brown. And then you can also see the first maybe 10 centimeters of the length of its body. It's got the spotted effect, and then it's got stripes as it goes down. It's a really nice find, and obviously this one has made its home in a tiny little hole in a fallen over log, which is why generally in Africa or Australia, those two continents particularly, you don't want to put your hand in holes. No, definitely not. All these tiny little holes are occupied by all kinds of creatures, and if you're the type of creature that doesn't like to be disturbed, then you might also be the type of creature that has quite good defenses. One of the first things we learned. Angie, you'd like to know if the snake is an egg eater? It is not an egg eater. It is a western yellow-bellied sand snake. So sand snakes, grass snakes, they kind of look quite similar.
On these Ngala, looks like they are slowly all getting mobile towards the west.
Just wanted to hear that was the update on the telemates that we couldn't stay with earlier. So those sand snakes, grass snakes, they look quite similar. And this is a western-bellied sand snake. There's also the scarp steker, which kind of looks a little similar too, but way, way thinner and smaller. But it's definitely not an egg eater. When she's asking this question, she doesn't mean does it eat eggs, but there are types of snakes that are called egg eaters. And this is definitely not one of them. Also, if you're wondering whether it eats eggs, it doesn't eat eggs. Well, I suppose if it came across an egg, it might try to eat it, but it's interested in any kind of mammals, little birds, frogs, amphibians, tiny little things, even other snakes. So, interesting find, and now that we know that it's home, I think we'll come back and visit often.
Indeed, those little striped sand snakes are very, very, very quick. There's actually we had a funny story the ones we were taking down the tent, and I know what they like to eat because we had this incident. Marcel, you were there, weren't you? Yep. Marcel was there, that's why Marcel is laughing. But we were taking down a tent, which was like an area that we used to use when it rained. And so we were packing this tent up, and where there were a lot of geckos that were hiding under the sort of, what's the word for it? The rain cover of the tent, I can't remember now, the ground sheet. And this gecko was running for its life, and as it ran across this bare section where the tent used to be, so the striped-bellied sand snake came flying out. Was it a striped-bellied or a spotted bush snake? It was a striped-bellied sand snake, that's right. Anyway, so the snake comes flying out. The gecko then looks to the nearest place for sanctity and safety, which just so happened to be me, because I was wearing long pants. And there was a perfect little gap for this gecko to go up my pants, and luckily I managed to move my leg out the way just in time before the gecko went up, and then subsequently the snake, which wouldn't have been a very comfortable experience to have a snake going up one's pants, which led to me jumping around all over the place, which apparently was hysterically funny for all of those involved. And so I was ridiculed for quite some time. Not that anybody else would have reacted any differently had a snake been approaching the leg of their trousers during that period. So... But yes, those snakes are quite something. As you can see, Tingana's just woken up. He's just picked his head up. There's Impala's alarm calling behind us. I wonder if it's the scent of him that's blowing onto them, or another cat is around.
Okay, from Tulsa coming, please.
We enjoyed the snake so much that we decided to visit him again. Remember, we said that since we know where it lives, we'll come visit it again. I visited it again. I had to just move out of the way to allow some traffic to pass us. Yes, we get traffic even in the reserve. It's quite a cutie, don't you think? Looks a bit thoughtful about the coming storm. Looks like it might be losing some energy. It's probably been basking this whole afternoon out here on this wonderful log. Soon it will tuck into its hole yet again. Hippie, you'd like to know what other kinds of snakes we see in Djuma? Oh, I went through this list before and I remembered it being more than I actually thought about. Brown house snakes, black mambas, boomslangs, twig vine snakes, spotted bush snakes, yellow-bellied sand snakes, eastern tiger snake, blind snake, stiletto snake, python, puff adders, Mozambique and spitting cobras. That's already 12, and that's just the ones that I know that have been seen and that I have seen. There are probably plenty more around. Can you hear the traffic? It's interesting too. I know it seems like an obviously unnatural sound, which it clearly is. But sometimes it's interesting to see how smaller creatures like these react to those sounds. And as you can see, no reaction whatsoever. Nothing. We discovered it this morning as we were getting into camp, and its little head was just poking out. Cantrell, you'd like to know if the snake is nocturnal? No, it's not. It's diurnal. There are a few snakes that are nocturnal, but generally it's a difficult thing to be nocturnal as a reptile because you are ectothermic. You gather your energy from your surrounding temperature. And if it's cold in the evening, then you're not going to be able to do much. So there are few nocturnal snakes. This is not one of them. This is a diurnal snake. I was hoping to pop into the den, the hyena den, before the end of show. Finally got that out. But unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to. So tomorrow morning, first port of call, hyena den. Butterfly, you'd like to know how we can determine the sex of this snake? With great difficulty, we'd have to look for its hemipenis, if it is a male. Everything in a snake is internal. And if you are slithering along the ground, you'd want to make sure that everything is very, very smooth and that you make the whole process as easy as possible. Now, having all kinds of protrusions, however necessary they may be, will cause you to hit a snag every now and then as you're slithering about. So it's important to have all those things internal or internalized. And with snakes, it's particularly important. So with great difficulty, we will determine the sex of the snake. But there's some snakes that are easier to determine, like a boomslang female is much duller than a male. It's almost brown. whereas the male is quite bright green. So there's other differentiating characteristics, but with this snake, I only know them to look like this. I have some guinea fowl in front of me, who I actually think would not mind getting their beaks on this snake. It's a good size for them. Shoo. Sometimes they can be a little crazy, these guinea fowl, in a good way. I think they would like this snake. Poor snake, you better be careful because there's ground horn bulls around too. Hopefully that'll make it slither back into its little hole. Okay, well, I wanted to go to the den, as I said, but it looks like we're just going to have to mooch about. We're not going to have enough time by the time drive ends. So let's see what we can find by mooching about.
Welcome back to Phinda andBeyond. We are sitting with the two male lions, and it seems like they're lying just against each other, perhaps to keep themselves warm. And one just opened his eyes, look around, and have a look around their neck, that dark black mane. And he's quite gold around the face. See, they're constantly twitching their tail. They don't really they don't like the flies. There are a lot of flies in this area, so the flies are busy bothering them. So perhaps earlier in the day, they were sleeping inside one of these bushes because it was a nice hot day, and now they just came out to get that fresh air. But have a look at the one lying close to us, just underneath his eye. He's got that white fur. So that white fur is to help them to see a little bit better at night than the prey species. And have a look at those huge paws they have. And judging by the long long mane and quite dark as well. So they're between 6.5 to 7 years. Telly, these males, they do hunt? That's a good question. They do hunt because they two of them together. So while they're busy patrolling their territory, they have to hunt because they have to be able to fight against the new males that are busy challenging them in an area. And if they're not if they're with the females, then the females will do the work for them. Then they'll steal whatever the female caught and feed on it. I have seen it. I have seen the two male before hunting, and they are successful hunters as well. As you can see that they've got bigger muscles and they're in a very good condition. Or the flies are really bothering them. You see they're busy twitching their tails. So these two males they are the dominant males of this area. So we're just at the border of their territory now. So there is another two male lions that are dominant further away from here, and those mountains at the background. So probably from here, they are gonna start heading back to their territory. They want to make sure that the other males are not gonna come into their territory. Look at the big yawn. Look at the size of those teeth. Wow. Lot of yawning. Wow. So the cats, if they started yawning, they're oxygenating their brain, which means they're gonna start moving around. There we go. There's one just sit up now, busy trying to bite those flies. So now you can see nicely that mane, thick black mane. So if you listen around us, you can hear some noises. Those are cicada beagles. That's look promising with the male that's sitting up now. So perhaps he's gonna start moving around. Look like he's got something, he's got his eyes locked onto something at the background there. Janice, these are two brothers. So if the lions are born, if the two males are born together or in the same pride, they do form the coalition. So they will spend a whole time together. But sometimes it does happen that they got separated because when it comes to mating purposes, there's one standing up. When it comes to mating purposes, look at the size of that. So with the mating purposes, they're not going to mate both of them together. One will get away and mate with the female. And as soon as he's done, then the second one will go and mate with the female again. So these are brothers. So you'll see the other one shortly. He's keeping an eye on his brother. He's going to yawn as well and follow his brother. Hello, pretty. They're also one of my favorite cute. And it's really nice to see them, how they socialize. Mostly lions. If there's no carcass around, they're quite happy with each other. So the reason why this brother is not following his brother, perhaps he can just see the brother behind us. He might be lying down. So that is why he's not following. I think we are going to spend some time with these two male lions and see what they are going to do. We're going to take you into the other ranges shortly and see what they found.
Right, well, as you can see, we're sitting with Tingana at the moment. He's still fast asleep at this stage. We'll reposition now. We had some alarm calls not far from him again of impalas. We went and we found the impalas, but we're fairly relaxed. But there's a bit of a breeze that's blowing at the moment, so I wonder if maybe, just maybe, it isn't to do with that wind. They're picking up his scent, and that's why we're seeing... these impalas are alarm calling. And it's just going to be a vehicle that's going to pass us quickly, so we're going to just let them come past. We'll let them pass us now, and we'll just reposition while they do that. So it'll be a perfect kind of time for me to move the vehicle and for them to go past us. I just want to get into a position where we can actually see his face a little bit better, because of the way that he's lying in this little ditch. It's very difficult, other than straight up the ditch, to actually be able to see him. From here is a much better angle that we have. So we'll just... Just wanted to double check that I'm parked all right. But there you go. It's much easier to kind of see him. He's had a very lazy day today, that's for sure. He's moved all of about 50 meters through the course of this afternoon. And I'm surprised, because normally with him, when you start to get a little bit of a cooler breeze blowing and nighttime coming in, then he starts to get up and walk, and especially when there's lots of kind of disturbance around him. But clearly the meal that he had last night and the fact that it's been a hot day has just been too much for him, and he's quite happy just to lie where he is right now. The other thing that surprises me is that he's lying at a horrible angle at the moment. So not only is his head kind of down a slope, but there's a slope from left to right as well. So his feet are kind of higher than his back, and it can't be that comfortable. So I suppose if he rolls the other way, it will be a lot better, but like this is not so great. The other nice thing is that while we were sitting here just now is that I heard some swamp nightjars calling, which I haven't heard for a while. They were in full tilt, as well as the general fiery neck nightjar. It's always nice to hear them calling. They have a very distinctive call, but unfortunately stopped now. You generally hear them calling when there's a bit of rain around. And talking of rain, I can actually see lightning behind us and also thunder. Is that lions calling? Yep. Also lions roaring from very, very far away as well. All right, so nothing seems to be phasing Tingana, the lions, the thunder, the lightning, all the nightjars. And so, well, we'll be patient and hope that eventually something does.
So I've got an incredible sunset in front of me with some white-backed vultures and hooded vultures in two dead trees framed against that beautiful sunset over the Drakensberg Mountains. And this is the area I was talking about earlier at andBeyond in Ngala, where we think the Birmingham Pride is. So they were seen not far from here yesterday when we saw them crossing the road. And I think that they are in here. We haven't heard anything yet, but I just want to listen for a little bit. And maybe we might hear them, because they should be getting active. That was incredible. That vulture couldn't find a good perch to sit on, so it had to go back to the other tree where it was before. Because they're so heavy, they really struggle. So with that massive wingspan and their weight, they've got to make sure that they've got a big enough space to land properly, otherwise they'll literally fall out of the tree. incredible sounds tonight and a really beautiful scene for the sunset. I think we're going to sit here and hope the lions come out.
Right, so as you can see, Tingana has stirred a little bit. I think a few bolts of lightning and a few claps of thunder have certainly awoken him a little bit. I was surprised just now when I saw the lightning out the corner of my eye that he didn't wake up, because it's not far away. And obviously cats typically know when there's lightning and thunder that it's, a storm is brewing, and therefore find some shelter. He doesn't want to be caught out where he is right now for two reasons. One is he would get very, very wet. The second reason is that if it rains excessively hard, where he's lying right now will become a river. These are cut like this in order to drain water off the roads. This little kind of spillway, if you want to call it that, that's coming off the road itself. And so it's designed purposely to channel water back into the bush and not to keep it on the road itself, for the road to stay in good condition and to get water back into the bush where it should be. And so where he's lying now is not going to be a good place in a raging storm. You'll find that he'd rather get into a little bit of a thicket that's more around a crest area, and they don't have to worry so much about being kind of chest deep in water and water rushing all around them. But he is absolutely magnificent. He's in such great condition. If you look at that width from the chest area to the shoulders, he's still got a serious set of kind of shoulders and neck area, which would be, like I say, intimidating to most leopards. That's for sure. He's really is an incredible specimen. Now watch what he'll do. There's a bit of a breeze that's just picked up, and he just picks it up his nose and smells a little bit. Tiana's, you're asking how we recognize the different leopards by their names. So Tiana's, after a while, you just start to get used to what they look like. Much like if you have a pet. I don't know if you have a cat or a dog at home. Those cats and dogs would, you'd be able to identify your cat and dog, not because of a spot pattern or anything like that, but because you start to get to recognize it. And that's kind of how it is for us out here. A lot of these cats we spend a lot of time with. This particular male leopard I've been watching for 9 years now. So you just get to know what he looks like straight away. But for most people, what they're going to use is spots. So either the spot pattern on the face, which is going to be the spots above the whisker line, or any distinguishing spot on the coat itself. Now, Tingana has a very, very distinctive smiley face on his shoulder. It's not easy to see it in this angle, but if you look at the bottom right of his shoulder, so it's kind of at the bottom of the screen, you can see there's two little eyes and a little smiley face. And so that would be a spot that you would use to be able to recognize him if you just saw his shoulder through a thicket. Or you could find some other marking above the eyes, or some sort of ear marking, or in the case of somebody like Nsele, or a leopard like Nsele, the one eye. So there's lots of different things that we use to identify them from that. And then in terms of their naming, a lot of the names come from traits that they show. So Tingana, shy, that referred to the way that he was when he first arrived. Obviously, things are not like that anymore. He's very, very relaxed. But when he first got here, he didn't want anything to do with us, much like Mulawati. Mulawati, for example, was named that because we were seeing him for the first few times along the Mulawati riverbed. And so that's where his name came from. So, that's where the kind of naming process comes in. And then the identifying them from those names is pretty much based off seeing them regularly, but then also spot patterns that you can use to 100% confirm their ID. But the longer you work and the longer you see them, the more you get to know them, and the more you kind of just trust your judgment from a far-off view. You must remember that, unlike this camera, our eyes can't zoom into spot patterns on the face and things like that. We have to rely on just overall body size and general sort of appearance to identify them more than spot patterns. And if you're unsure, then a pair of binoculars, and you can kind of look at the spots on the face or around the eyes or something like that, and that will then help you from there. But it takes a bit of practice, and eventually you get it right. Some are much better than others. A lot of people still struggle to ID leopards. Like I say, this morning he was called Malawati for most of the morning, which quite clearly it's not. It's interesting how he's facing back in towards the direction he came from. I think it's because the storm is blowing in from that side and lots of rumbling and lightning coming there. I wonder if he gets mesmerized by the lightning like we do. You know, often you sit out and you watch these storms rolling in, and kind of takes your breath away and you end up just watching for a long time. Anyway, talking about storms and rolling in, it's time for us to head on home before we get punished with rain and lightning and all of those kinds of things, which is never the greatest thing to be hit by in an open vehicle. And so we're going to leave Tingana. I hope that you all had the most wonderful afternoon with us. Like I said, there's something for everybody, and so we'll see you all tomorrow morning on our sunrise safari.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
It is a fine and beautiful morning here on Djuma Game Reserve. Look at that antelope on a quarantine, and the sun is beaming. The air is beautiful and cool. It's just